Hello, everybody, and welcome to Quack and Smite League. Today, we will have the Journeymen versus the Starhoppers today. A great deep sea match to watch for sure. Casting for today will be me on chair 1, Sir Ionicus, and joining me will be Kaizo for chair 2.
Hello, I'm the one with the dog in the picture, and just to be clear, that is not my dog. I wish it was my dog, and I do not know what breed it is. I've had a couple of different people ask me that question before, and her name is Nebby, named after Nebula from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I do not know what breed it is, so do not at me on Discord.
I mean, gonna just quickly take back my message real quick.
Delete.
For sure. But we do have already bands coming underway, Kabrakan and pretty standard stuff right there. But looking at these two teams, we have the roster. Looks like Starhoppers are having a sub in place of their solo laner, Vito, subbing for King Stampy. And on the other side, Brockazoid subbing in for support from his main sub spot. Looking at these two teams, which team do you think, just looking at names, what do you think we're going to expect out of this game?
Well, I can actually, I don't have the best way to contest that just because I'm actually going into this matchup fairly blind. I'm not super familiar with either one of these teams, which I think is actually a much more engaging and interesting way for me personally to experience these games, because it lets you form your own opinions based on the gameplay and the merit alone, as opposed to coming in with any preconceived notion for how the set's going to go and what the meta conversation is outside of the gameplay. So I'm actually very excited to see just exactly that, how these teams kind of stack up against one another. You mentioned each one of these teams having a sub, one in solo, one in support. Oftentimes, when you have a sub and support, that's your guy that's the main coordinator for your team. Your main shot caller is oftentimes the support player. So I've seen in the past communications kind of break down around that mid 3v3, which can be very difficult for when you're trying to transfer from the early game into the mid game. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes on the Journeymen, because if Brockazoid can keep those comms intact, I think that they're in a pretty comfortable position if they have to put a sub somewhere.
For sure. I will say this, knowing Brockazoid from last season in his Shallows games, he was a very aggressive solo laner, so it's going to be very interesting to see how he makes that aggressive solo into a support playstyle. I do know he plays a lot of support as well, so it'll be exciting to see that as well. Going through the bands, like again, I said it for the Kabrakan earlier, just very, very standard stuff. The Ishtar, new and upcoming band that I previously hadn't mentioned in, before, but I mean, pretty strong. Yeah. I think core 3 bands from each side, and Kepri just instantly locked in for Journeyman.
Yeah, and the Ishtar is one where, so the narrative that I've been preaching is that Ishtar is kind of the new era Cupid. And we've seen a whole lot of Cupid recently, Ionicus. It's been plaguing every single one of these sets up until recently, where people are like, wow, a giant AoE cripple? That's really good. Well, what if I told you that giant AoE cripple could also stun you on the back end and potentially deal even more damage? That's kind of what this Ishtar offers. She's much safer in the laning phase. She has a lot better survivability. Her boxing is much more flexible as opposed to the all-in that you have to get from Cupid. Ishtar is starting to find a pretty comfortable spot here, and that's even only in the duo lane, much less in the mid lane, where we've been seeing a lot of these hunters starting to transition their way toward. I think that this is a very flexible god, and like you said, it's becoming standard to ban her, and I think it's for pretty good reason.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you got 3 different types of autos for options, you can't go wrong at any point. But going in further on, we got Yamoja on the other side to counter the Kepri. Solid Kepri, where's he going to go? And then Cernos, another high-end pick, especially with double hunters going on. That's been a doozy lately.
It has. Yeah, these teams are really starting to value putting these high-pressure hunters in the mid lane, and it's not just fighting for pressure and fighting for these neutral camps, which we've seen that meta before. We've seen, like, AMC and other garbage like that has been finding its way into the mid lane for a while. Anytime that the top-end players decide, pressure is super important in mid. We have to get this farm. Lately, though, it's been a lot more, we want to be able to do these objectives as quickly and effectively as possible. That's why we've been seeing so many double ADC compositions, so many late game hyper carry compositions recently, is that these teams are putting a lot more priority on knocking down these towers early, being able to pull a Gold Fury if you only get 1 or 2 picks. If you have a conventional mage in the mid lane, you don't always get that option, so just a lot more flexibility afforded to you when you put something like this Kurtanos in the mid lane, and I would suspect that that's probably where this one's going.
Yeah, you do bring up a good point. I do think that the double hunter has been very, very strong for this objective shred, and you know what, God would be great if he wasn't disabled Fafnir. I'm just saying.
God rest his soul.
Poor man, poor dragon dwarf man. But I do think, I will say, Merlin, probably one of the better mages if you're going for that objective shred.
Yep, very true.
In there. So unfortunately, their solo laner tier is not going to be nearly as useful on objectives as the Guan Yu for shredding protections, but should be just as good, I think, on the other side. But Nisha, Artemis bands also coming out. Artemis, kind of a weird band. I like, obviously the team fight, but
yeah, it's just very difficult to dive into specifically, and oftentimes with the Guan Yu, he is a menace in the backline if you can't lock him down or at least force him to use that cavalry charge ultimate. And that's kind of what Artemis does for free, is if she gets aggressed on, you pop that ult, the pig sort of ping-pongs its way around the fight, and you don't just get value on the anti-dive with this Artemis, it also can sometimes navigate its way to the front end of the fight and make it much more difficult to deal with. So I don't hate taking it away here. I think that there are obviously other strong options, like we discussed briefly, this Cupid that is now picked up by the Starhoppers, but it's certainly one that's worth taking away if that's something that you determine to be a potential hazard in the team fight phase.
Fair enough. And it also opens up the Cupid, as you pointed out, coming out on free Artemis, a really good counter from what I remember. But I think Charybdis also great. I mean, where what god gives you Aegis for free? Charybdis. So that should be a very good pickup for Journeymen, as it looks like the builds are rounding up. That Loki. It's been a while since I've seen a Loki, but
yeah,
I mean, it's a team with Cyber on it. No, wait, roles reversed. Trying to show Cyber how it's done.
Hey, sometimes you gotta flex on him and let him know how it's played. I don't think Loki necessarily has a home in the meta right now, but, you know, I wouldn't say the same about Bastet either. Like, I don't typically think of either one of these characters as, this is the jungler that I want right now, but, I mean, if you take a look at the bottom of your screen, we've got 5 assassins banned out, so you are kind of reaching for what might be at the bottom of the barrel at that point, and we're going back a couple of metas to reach toward either one of these characters, but they were both at one point strong in their own right and worthwhile of a pickup. There was that brief period of time right after Loki got changed where people thought maybe this is a great solo laner, or you can build him hybrid and play him as a jungler, but now it's a lot less of that, and it's just more, this is a more effective edition of Loki. It's kind of old Loki, but incrementally better. He doesn't one-shot you as well, but he at least feels like he's helping you in some semblance of a way in the team fight phase. So Loki has his tools. He's not a Swiss Army knife by any means, but he's certainly one that can hold his own, and I think that it's going to be an interesting matchup, to say the least, specifically into this Bastet.
And not to mention, if I remember correctly, Loki ult does cripple, so Bastet's gonna have to be careful jumping in, because you get crippled, immediately get crippled before you can jump back, stunned, and then all of a sudden you're either using a beads or you hunter a Bast. The Bastet's gonna have to be a little bit more careful, just trying to take those 1v1s, but should be interesting all around. Looking at both drafts, though, I think both look very, very strong. I mean, I'm seeing Guan versus Tyr, Yamoja versus Khepri. That front line alone is just making me go, oh, shivers right there. But looking at both sides, which team do you think, just draft-wise, not even paying attention to the team, do you think has the ticket here that should do well?
Yeah, it's real tough to vote against the Starhoppers here. I think that they've got a steal of a draft. The Yamoja, obviously one of the top supports, and I mean, you can go 1-to-1 and pair them across one another. Khepri is another one that people typically think is very, very good right now and arguably one of the best. I think that Yamoja counters out the Khepri, so Starhoppers probably win there, but just about everywhere else, man, it's pretty free for the Starhoppers to just say that they got the better pick. Kernanos mid is the flavor of the month. People think that this is the next wave that people need to start getting on and starting to get familiar with. And then Guan Yu does not lose lane to Tyr. I just want to make that incredibly clear now. Tyr is often considered to be a lane bully with how effectively he clears the wave, but Guan Yu, with all of his knockback immunity, should never be getting fearless in that lane. That should be pretty free. So I think Starhoppers, if they can clear the 10-15 minute mark without getting behind, this should be pretty smooth sailing for them.
I mean, fair enough. It definitely very strong team fight. I mean, Umoja, as you said, definitely makes the Khepri seem a little less useful, and then Guan Yu, Cupid, all these strong picks. But we're going to go ahead and transfer over to, or so I would say. But yeah, I will say Guan Yu, not to mention you've got the cavalry charge, the heal, just all that team fight presence as well.
Yeah.
I will say probably one of the shining sides of Journeyman, and this is going to sound super troll to say, is probably going to be Charybdis, especially with the Aegis and the Aegis just not being available with beads.
Oh yeah,
should be very, very interesting to see, because Charybdis gets a free Aegis. Just you hit your 3 button and it goes off. You just don't take damage.
Yeah, and this is, I said that Ishtar is kind of like new era Cupid to me. I think that Charybdis is new era Jingwei, where Jingwei used to be the, what do we want in ADC, guys? We don't know, or we need something safe. Just pick Jingwei and then we'll see you in 25 minutes. That's kind of what Charybdis has turned into in the current meta, where she matches up very well into specifically the Cupid, which people love to pick over there in the dual lane still, and then incredibly safe and difficult to dive, not only in the laning phase but in the team fight phase. Like you said, going down under the water and being immune to both damage and crowd control is so difficult for most of these solo laners to deal with, and most of these junglers as well. I mean, a lot of them are relying on that quick burst damage to just eliminate you immediately, but a well-timed Charybdis 3 to get you under the water before that damage is applied is more than enough to keep you alive, and can potentially be the turning point in a lot of these fights. People tend to forget that in addition to that immunity, she also gets her own CC, right? She gets that knockup if she has enough tide, and oftentimes people diving her are not ready for that, and that can be a good turning point. So credit where credit is due to this Charybdis. Like you said, this could be the linchpin of this Journeyman draft if they can make it to the team fight stage.
For sure. But on that note, we're going to go ahead and move over to the game here. Starting up, both teams just happy hopping around with Kregerfro and Brockazoid. Definitely happy to have them here. And his starts just typically have been the same for recently. It doesn't look like much is changing. I'm definitely seeing a Loki and Merlin heading toward red buff. What kind of things were we expecting going into this first one? Obviously, we've got the junglers are probably going to go over to solo lane, but where do you think action is going to pop off first, and about at what point?
Well, it should be around this mid lane, right? Because you have a very specific advantage for the Starhoppers in this Kernanos. Merlin is fine early, but isn't really going to be turning any heads for his ability to fight early on, especially considering he really needs that flicker to feel safe enough to get in there and scrap effectively, whereas this Kernanos hits level 2 and he's on your tower line for the rest of the game. So if the Starhoppers want to mount some kind of significant competitive advantage in this one, it should ideally be around this mid 3v3. And the Journeymen really have to understand that and find somewhere else to fight, because you don't want to fight where the enemy team is strongest. That's a mistake that a lot of these teams, especially the lower level teams that have less experience, will make, is, oh, they're pressuring mid lane, we have to respond, we have to defend mid lane. Just go somewhere else, man. Find somewhere else that you find an advantage. If that's in the dual lane, if you feel comfortable fighting over here, find somewhere else that you can find advantage, because you know that the Starhoppers are going to be running it down mid all game long.
For sure. I mean, you make a valid point, and this Merlin probably is going to have to be like 2-3 items deep before him and Kernanos have any real challenge against each other. Well, Cernos has any challenge going into the Merlin, just because the damage at that point gets a little excessive, especially in fire stance. One big thing I'm looking for, I think, would be probably the jungle matchup as well. Seeing where this Bastet wants to put the pressure. Obviously, you said mid lane, very, very good
Right.
idea. Very easy for him because Merlin, once that flickers down, is a very easy target. You jump, kill him. But which side do you think the Loki should put this pressure in? Like, obviously, Guan in the tier, no one's going to die. But the dual lane's also a little rough. Do you think he should respond in mid as well? Or just kind of move to a dual lane, maybe get this Cryptus ahead just so that they have some counter to the massive team fight that Starhoppers have?
I think that you have a chance to smother this Guan Yu, because Guan Yu should never lose this matchup in the 1v1, like I said on the desk, but he is pretty dependent on getting his blue buff and making sure that he can effectively and safely farm everything that he needs to. If you can successfully force him into his tower, take away that blue buff, that opens up a lot of freedom for you, and Tyr is a character that actually does fairly well if you give him that freedom. His rotations are pretty impactful. That CC is very meaningful on a backliner, not so much on an enemy solo laner, but if you can get him to this Kurnanos effectively, that could be your avenue to find a good way into this game. But right now, it's Bastet that's invading the right side jungle. She's going to grab that speed buff.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Snowy backing for just a second as the blue buff was coming up. I was like, blue buff though. But that was a great call, just to go for that speed buff, knowing Loki isn't there to pick it up immediately, though. The tier is looking for the blue buff in exchange on invade from Vito, but Bastet not here at all. Fearless obviously still up, but Vito being smart enough to keep us 2. But unfortunately,
nicely
done. Great secure by Corbin, pulling the buff away.
Yeah, and getting it away from the Guan Yu is what really secures that buff there, because Tyr never in any danger there, neither is the Guan Yu. Nobody's dying for that contest, but there is a very big chance that that dash from Guan Yu is going to out-secure any of the damage that the Tyr might be able to put onto that buff. So very intelligent from Corbin to just get that one away from him, and worst case scenario, both of them end up outside of the pit and the buff doesn't go down in either one's favor. Now this Guan Yu without a blue buff, like I said, is in danger of getting smothered and just out-rotated, especially considering Corbin has Bluestone and going into some kind of hammer here. Maybe a Blackthorn hammer wouldn't be a bad idea. He's going to clear these waves very effectively, and that's when a tier is really scary. You can see he's got that one online now. Once he can clear this wave and just wander off into the jungle, that makes Snowy's life a lot more difficult. That makes Clucknuts much more uncomfortable in the mid lane. He has to always know where that tier is at all times. That can be a very frustrating game state to play against if you are the Starhoppers.
Yeah, I mean, no one likes when tier is good, let's be honest, and he can definitely do very, very well being able to put the pressure on. I mean, if Snowy's already going to have the hard time in the 1v1, where that 1v1 becomes a 2v1, not in favor of Snowy, and all of a sudden you got Loki cripple and the Fearless. That sounds like a horrible time, not going to lie. And it does look like, though, the dual lanes, looks like that the Charybdis Khepri has been keeping pressure rather decently back and forth. So not as just fall back and passive play as I thought it might end up. So looking forward to seeing what Kragerfro and Brockazoid can do off of just out of that lane as well. Oh my goodness, I'm looking at Corbin. Corbin's 2 levels up on Vito already. Might be just a level and a half, but looks like they are going for the blue buff. Loki and Tyr both here. Doesn't look like they're going to get there in time. And red team just going to back out and just say, nope, not today.
Yeah, and a potential missed opportunity for the Journeymen there, because I do think that they could have realistically fought that one possibly to the death if they got there in time. I mean, this Guan Yu is going to be very difficult to bring down, but as far as the threat that he has, it's not crazy high, at least not on this tier, considering he went for that sovereignty. That makes him next to immortal on these buff invades and on the laning phase, but when it comes to actually trying to defend your buff and fighting effectively in the 2v2, you don't get a whole lot of value out of it. You're going to be there forever. They're never killing you. But you're also not probably killing them, and that's kind of the trade-off that you get from this item. Hold that thought, though, as Corbin's getting ganked over here.
Oh no, Corbin getting caught proxying a little bit too far. Umoja and Bastet both here dealing some considerable numbers, but Tyr is in the defensive stance, so getting those extra protections. But great Riptide out of Umoja as Clicknuts does fall in the mid lane to Gumbo and Merlin. And unfortunately, Hunter of Bast will hit, gets the beads. And Corbin still getting out. There's Cavalry Charge as well. And unfortunately, Corbin?
Yo!
That was the greatest second ability of Tyr of like his day. That second ability has got to get a nerf at some point. Corbin just goes back in. The Rivers Rebuke does come in and locks him back in sight, and unfortunately he will fall to Vito. Corbin LD a little bit too greedy for that wave and will fall for his hubris.
Yeah, imagine the universe where Brockazoid gets here in time and just ults him and then he just lives through that, right? You know how frustrating that would have been for the Starhoppers if you just get away with that one basically for free. But, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Like, Corbin was out, right? Like, he used beads on the Bastet ult. They weren't ready for it with the Guan Yu ult. They probably didn't even know he had beads based on how they reacted there, and he should have been alive, but my man is just like, you know what, one more wave surely couldn't hurt that much, and then immediately gets punished for it. But like you said, during the cast of that fight, Josh the Landlord does combine with Gumbo on the Loki to finally take down this Kernanos for the first time. That makes it 1-1, but even despite that Kern going down in the mid lane, it is still the Journeymen who are pretty comfortably in the lead here, and you gotta imagine that a lot of that is still coming from that solo lane. You cleared up the gap a little bit between the two of them, now only about 2, maybe 300 gold separating them, but Corbin is very comfortable right now. As you can see, he's going for these back camp invades. They killed him, but he is absolutely not out of this lane. He is still going to be a menace, and you still have a big problem that you have to deal with if you're the Starhoppers.
Yeah, I mean, you were saying it earlier. I mean, give Tyr a small little lead, and he will take the mile and start becoming a pain in everyone's rears for it. And Loki coming over to gank the Guan Yu isn't going to get too much. Gets the damage.
Sovereignty, by the way.
Yeah, sovereignty. Speaking of sovereignty, that's not an item I often see on Guan Yu. Obviously, it makes you very, very killed, but hold on a moment as there is a fight in mid. Brockazoid does get crippled, and then the stun, and Hunter of Bast as well. This might be the dead. Capriole does come out. Scarab's Blessing going to proc here. All ults are down, but Loki coming with a great stun there. Great for peeling up Brock, and Brock's alive, and even getting a kill onto the Umoja in the hands of Josh the Landlord. Another kill in favor of this mid laner, and they're going to still keep going. Tyr ulting over the wall. Lawbringer coming in a little bit too far. Might be going for Cluck Nut there, but unfortunately, Josh the Landlord cannot get the damage on top of him in time. But oh my goodness, Journeyman having a show in mid right now.
Yeah, and that is absolutely the difference between getting Gauntlet of Thebes early and getting Mail of Renewal early. Because Brockazoid lived so incredibly long there because he has the base protections already. You can see, just for a sake of comparison, he would have had about 20 stacks on Thebes. That would not have kept him alive. He needed every single protection that Mail of Renewal gave him, and he also needed that heal, which was very big and helped him stall just long enough that Gumbo could come in with that big ult from the Loki. And Josh the Landlord, you know, Merlin, not known for his early game damage, but if you're going to stand in front of him for 15 seconds while you try to kill a Khepri, he's eventually going to put out enough damage to kill you.
I mean, just whatever stance he's clearing in, then he switches the fire stance, all of a sudden you're burning everyone, and then you probably got, I imagine you got a second cast off before he even was charging the tower. It's probably where his 2 was, but there is a Green Krigafo again. Icy does get the Heart Bomb onto him, but that third ability of Cribdus is just a little bit too safe, and honestly, a great Riptide and River's Rebuke does force out the ultimate, and Cupid gonna ult onto that, and Krigafo is just dead! I was about to say how strong this pick for Charybdis is, 2 ganks and doesn't die, but instead, a great fight from Animated there to get that River's Rebuke and trap him after the 3. Yep. I think that was huge.
And that is the difference between using the ult first and using the 3 first, because Charybdis 3, for some reason, can go underneath Umoja, but we don't have time to talk about that right now.
Yeah, as Icy is a little bit too far out, does have to beat the Loki ultimate, and great Riptide, but Gumbo wasn't aware that Brockazoid was wanting to fight more. Snowy coming over here to try and push back the pressure. Even Clucknuts, 4 members of the Starhoppers coming to help get this purple buff, and now you get Corbin from the solo lane, lobbering right in, and does get stunned out by the Moonstrike from Animated, so not gonna be able to do too much aggression after everyone dashed away, but great just being there and having the presence there to keep them from just pushing that fight further.
Yeah, and Raptor, by the way, shout out Raptor on production for running it for us tonight. Can we take a look at Charybdis 3 so I can complain about this ability and also know what it's actually called? Because this ability, Whirlpool Form, there we go. I wanted to say something about the Maw, but I would have been wrong. Whirlpool Form does really good damage, like 120 base damage level 1 for some reason, and makes you immune, and you can go under player-made walls. And that is so big in this matchup against specifically the Yemoja, who wants to force you out by using that ultimate, that River's Rebuke, to trap you in. If you save your 3 on Charybdis, you just go underneath that and you are not bothered by it. It's basically a leap. But because they forced it out earlier in left lane, that makes Charybdis have to ult for CC immunity instead, so she gets trapped in there, and that eventually opens up this Gold Fury on the left-hand side.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Wait, man.
And we were talking about how strong Charybdis is at getting escape, and then Craigerfro just steals.
Scripted.
Just steals the Gold Fury, and on the right side of the map, the Starhoppers, not the Starhoppers, the Journeymen also get Pyromancer. A steal from Charybdis, what was that, 2? The waves.
Yeah.
That's insane. As there is a fight in mid lane. Animated barely does manage to get out. Snowy is forward, though. Does use the Hunter of Best onto Josh the Landlord. Forces the shell out.
Body blocks.
The Great River's Rebuke and a Riptide to lock them in there. Moonstrike covering the avenues of escape. But unfortunately, Brockazoid, having used the Scarab's Blessing on Merlin, isn't going to be able to do much else. That tick damage might get him, and does get the secure on the kill of Josh the Landlord. Gumbo does go in and might get a triple kill for his trouble. Just coming in. That was a great shell, though, negating all that basic attack damage, but unfortunately not enough. And Animated? Triple kill for Gumbo!
Okay, Gumbo, I see you, big dog, getting that triple kill there in the mid lane, making sure everybody from the Starhoppers goes down for their transgressions. And, you know, Brockazoid did his best to save Josh the Landlord, but it is very difficult to play against this Bastet if you don't get to get Aegis. Obviously, these players still bound by the rule where you can't use beads and Aegis at the same time. And you're really not supposed to pick them up at all, Mr. Cupid, but sometimes you just do it anyway, and then you have to live with yourself, and you only get to use one of those relics. But if you don't get to go Aegis, Bastet is going to do a whole bunch of damage to you. Like, that is what makes Bastet so easy to play against, or at least gives you good counterplay, is her damage is very predictable. It's very easy to Aegis out. You don't have to deal with a lot of unexpected burst damage that a lot of the assassins right now have. But because you aren't supposed to build Aegis, you don't get that luxury. You can see Josh the Landlord has the shell, and I wouldn't expect to see anything different from Craig Afro. You don't really get to immune a lot of that damage. You have to pretty much eat every little bit of it, and Shell ain't gonna cut it most of the time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Shell very good against basic attacks and not so great against burst, as there does seem to be a fight brewing here. 4 members of the Starhoppers here to get a kill on Josh the Landlord, but Cupid does get a great ultimate, does get the beads out of Merlin. Unfortunately, Brockazoid a little bit too far up, has to use Scarab's Blessing on himself as the Hunter of Bass comes through, but Gumbo here on the backside does get into the 3 of them, gets a great second ability, but unfortunately, Snowy does force him out to ult away. Still keeping up on the chase there, as now Josh the Landlord in trouble as the Guan Yu does ult onto him, and they do get the kill. Vito picking that up for the side of Starhoppers, 1-0 in favor of the red team.
And yo, shout out Vito for getting put down early and saying, well, I'm still Guan Yu, like I'm still gonna do Guan Yu things, and making that rotation first and more impactfully than this tier ever could. You can see that Corbin is up here trying to proxy between Tower and Phoenix, but that isn't gonna do a whole lot when your Guan Yu is already on the other side of the map, making his presence known. He did not even have to TP to that, so that's coming up soon. That's going to be another potential good rotation for him. Obviously, with Gold Fury down, not a whole lot to fight over, but that's not stopping them from scrapping in this duo lane. They're still trying to make something happen, and because of that, you see right-hand side, Snowy's now trying to hunt down Corbin, but I don't think they're going to be able to find him.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I will say, I don't think Vito was the first, but Vito was the most impactful first one, as the two times we've seen Tier outside of the solo lane, with one time in mid and the one time in left. Oh my goodness, Icy fortunately does great. That was a great Khepri pluck from Brockazoid. It cannot be understated how much Brockazoid is doing for this team. This is a sub, by the way. This is one of the roster subs. So he's doing a great job on this Khepri, I think. But going back to the point before, Corbin, his 2 rotations out, one he rotated all the way over to left lane and got nothing out of it. In fact, got stunned away and they couldn't really do much. And then the whole time Guan Yu was farming, he even had a level lead at the time. Obviously, Corbin has now said, no, level lead is mine. But as you said, shout out to Vito for having a great just rotation, an effective rotation. And now Cernanos is over here, does force out the 3 and the ultimate from Charybdis. But Cernanos also doesn't have ultimate as well. Brockazoid looking here to get his Hunter peeled out. As in mid lane, we now have Loki onto Snowy. Snowy about to fall, almost dies to just the Merlin. And now Tyr almost gets the Fearless Lawbringer going in. Does get connect onto the kill. Vito does get 2 stuns out onto the Journeyman, but Gumbo unfortunately cannot run away from the grasp of Cernanos. But Tyr, great Fearless back into the team. And Clucknut's a little bit in trouble, but does have the shell. Cupid now having ultimate out, Fields of Love catching Brockazoid. And just 3 members of Journeyman. Their damage dealer a little bit low against 4 members of Starhoppers.
Yeah, very back and forth in that one in mid. Not really sure what they were fighting over other than just people were in the mid lane, so let's fight. And usually that's the Kurdanos effect, right? Where people want to fight around mid because Kern's very strong in mid, but my man Clucknotes was in left lane, so I'm not really sure what they're scrapping over, but now it has become very clear that the new objective, the new target of this aggression is going to be this Primal Fury, and it is definitely a man advantage for Starhoppers here.
Yeah, and especially since Clucknuts hasn't even backed, so he's just relying on the Emoja healing and Feyblast hoops that have come out from that Emoja for healing. And obviously that'll help you out for a while, and Guan Yu on top of that just makes it so much better. But Corbin, Kana, mid lane, they're looking to try and pick him out, but unfortunately it's a Tier. You're not killing Tier. But yeah.
Remember this tier build, by the way? Remember when the tier build was just, hey, I'm going to build cooldown and then a bunch of movement speed and just zoom my way around the map? Do you have any idea how frustrating that was to play against? But we're going to see them going back to that, but actually going back to animated. Potentially is animated here. He's going to get caught in the jungle by Craig Afro, and Pyromancer goes down here, but I think it's going to be the Gold Fury that goes down for the Journeyman.
And unfortunately, that's just not a good trade for Starhoppers. Obviously, you get some gold. I mean, Gumbo does die there, but I still think that trade favors Journeyman, as Gold Fury is a lot more worth than Pyromancer used to be. Obviously, you don't want to, having the little buffer is still nice, but they did nerf the gold gain from Pyromancer a few patches back. But Snowy now heading into the jungle might get caught out by Corbin here.
Yeah, backdrop for this chase is going to be, this is going to be the backdrop for the conversation I want to have. If Raptor, you don't mind pulling up the gold graphs here, I want to see what the end of that last engagement was, and you're absolutely right. Journeyman completely on top of that when his Snowy does eventually fall, but hang on, Vito's in here. This might not just be 1-for-0, but I mean, nobody else really seems interested, so 1-0 in favor of the Journeyman. That's going to add even more into their coffers, and they've been, slowly on the up and up in this game. It's been a very gradual climb into the lead, but they are sitting pretty comfortably ahead of the Starhoppers here, to the point that 6,000 gold, 20 minutes, this is usually when these teams start to look at taking on this Fire Giant.
Yeah, so Clucknuts gets his dash caught by Josh the Landlord, but unfortunately, you are a mage. You've got probably, you got like a great fight from Clucknuts. Unfortunately, you're not beating an ADC, because you know what an ADC has after he has abilities? He has autos, and you know what those autos do? They hurt.
Yeah, I think we saw that on display there. I mean, Clucknuts just said, oh, you caught my dash? Oh no, call an ambulance. But not for me.
Oh goodness, but I mean, that's just the power of Hunters mid, man. Unfortunately, mages,
pretty good.
You got that burst, but it can be rough when you're trying to take that 1v1. But I will say, the gold gain and the lead that the Journeymen have gotten so far, as you said, I think I want to put that, as much as I want to say Tyr's been a big proponent of it, obviously proxying waves and being just an absolute menace. I mean, the one time he died was his own hubris. But I think it can't be understated how much Gumbo's doing. Is Korigafro almost dies. If that if Whirlpool form didn't exist.
But I don't know the name of that ability too, by the way.
Yeah, now I know that I was about to call it something Ma earlier as well.
It sounds like it should fit, right? Like it should for sure be like the Maw Hunger. Oh wait, no, is that the
Yeah,
old? What is the old called?
Descendant of the
Maw.
Ma.
Damn it, that's what it was. Okay, I knew it was something like that, but hang on, Starhoppers want more.
Oh no, as Cupidol does come out, unfortunately, the 3 from Charybdis, that Whirlpool form is back, but Yamoja is not willing to let this go as Journeyman, knowing that there are 4 members on the left side of the map, no eyes on Guan Yu, but they're not scared of Guan Yu stealing Fire Giant as they are 3-man on it. Merlin being in lieu of a hunter, Guan Yu is aware of it at the last second, but not soon enough.
Wow.
And now Starhoppers not even getting any value on the left side, might have to just settle for a tier 1, maybe tier 2 tower if they can get there fast enough.
And wards, man. That is why wards are so incredibly important. And I am a big abuser of the fact that I do not. Okay, well, they had a ward on it, so there goes that talking point. But I mean, if you know Fire Giant is taking place, why do you send 4 people to war crime the dual lane and left? I feel like a much better investment of your time as the Starhoppers might have been making sure fire doesn't go to all 5 members, because you didn't even get the kill onto Brachiozoid or Craig Afro. Now with 5 people with Fire Giant, 6,000 gold in the lead, and nothing going the way of Starhoppers on by way of that trade, this is a commanding position for the Journeymen. There's still a couple of towers they can knock down here. There's still 4 towers worth of gold. Oni Fury is due to spawn in about a minute or so. This is a lead that will translate to another lead. This is not a, you don't win the game off of this Fire Giant 8 times out of 10, but you probably get yourself to the point where the next time fire rolls around, the other team can't even think about contesting, even if they ward it again, even if they know what's happening again. They're not going to want to come and contest it for a completely different reason next time.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things of the Journeyman clearly have the macro play in mind as animated just in mid. I mean, he is a tank, but you do have the entirety of Journeyman coming around. He does have a good Riptide to keep the Fearless down, but who's protecting you at that point as you beat to your own Riptide? Great River's Rebuke to peel himself out, but that could have been a completely normal one. But Kragenfro forced the beats as well as Hunter of Vast catches him in the backline. Vito going to keep pushing further. Cupidol, Fields of Love, trapping Brachiozoid, forcing his Scarab's Blessing onto himself. Clucknuts is off to the side on his own, but Icy will finally be the first casualty of this fight from Josh the Landlord. Unfortunately, Corbin's still being chased out by Clucknuts, who's still behind them. The Cernos right behind them. Like, this Cernos is just gonna die, right? No, he does not die. Great emoji heal. Blink does come out of Snowy, though. See if he can do anything else, but there's Gumbo making sure he's like, wait, that Cernos did all that and is still alive? Not on my watch. And now going further into this T2 tower, Snowy trying to get some damage onto the back line, does get a decent bit, but is forced to use their beads into the Fearless and will fall to Kragerfro. Unfortunately, just too much damage, and Gumbo and Corbin doing a great job zoning out the frontliners.
Yeah, Journeyman gonna have to research what the behind us VGS is after this set's over, but hang on, front of us is Vito going in, trying to get some damage with the cavalry charge, but controlled and taken down here. Corbin, will make sure that that one goes down. In Phoenix, this could very well be the game here for the Journeyman, but they seem very comfortable just taking that Phoenix, backing up, grabbing this farm, and maybe taking their attention to this Oni Fury. And, you know, Gumbo on your screen making some magic happen, won't get the kill onto the Cupid here, but he absolutely has answered my questions of what does Loki look like in the current meta? And apparently it looks like a Bumba's Hammer and a Rage for some reason, because I guess he wanted to have crit. That's not really the direction I would have anticipated that you're going to take it, but credit where credit is due. My man is like making plenty of good use out of this Loki. The ults have been huge. He's been very squiggly and difficult to catch in a lot of these engagements. They haven't done a great job of keeping their eyes on him and locking him down. And, you know, that's when this Loki tends to feast. These invisible characters love to find their way into the backline at an unexpected angle and just wreak havoc on you for not having all of the information. If you aren't communicating effectively, if you aren't keeping your eyes on this guy at all times, he's going to have some very flashy plays. And we've definitely seen a couple of very impressive looking Loki ults from Gumbo. I had questions, but all of them are answered here for me.
Yeah, I mean, not to. I'm pretty sure I'm looking at Loki's build, right? And obviously, I'm not thinking, oh, this is the new tech, but it is very effective, I would say. As Corbin, yeah, I thought Corbin was about to die. Like Cupid ult, that guy's dead.
I mean,
But
it's got 3,800 HP, by the way, but 0
Vito,
HP on this Guan Yu. And, just solo lane diff. That's all you can say. Corbin's full HP, Vito's 0 HP. What more is there to say?
I mean, there's definitely a difference, and it's a full health bar of differences. Gumbo, oh no, he's split pushing in the left lane. They're gonna have to be careful. Unfortunately, I don't think they're gonna be able to stop this. There's a wave and everything, and they're just fighting in mid. Unfortunately, as you said before, the lead translating to another lead is now a 13k, 14k gold lead almost in favor of Journeymen. That's insane, all on its own. But now the Starhoppers can't step up to this FG, and if they do, it's clear Journeyman, we just saw it with Vito, the Journeymen aren't afraid of you. They're going to look at your tanks and be like, what's that? Is that a bug on my windshield? Let me get that out of the way real quick.
SWAT
another fire
smash.
giant.
Yeah, they are definitely in a very confident and commanding position in this one. Like you said, now 15,000 gold in the lead with Fire Giant under the belts of all 5 members. Not an enhanced Fire Giant, so definitely still something that you can hypothetically fight back into, but I mean, Starhoppers have not been making it look easy to find a way into these fights. I really, really, really want them to find a good all-together team fight, because a lot of these engagements that we've seen from the Starhoppers have been splintered, right? Like, it's been Snowy all by himself. It's been Clucknuts trying to take a 1v1. It's been Toolsy fishing for a Cupid ult on 1 or 2 members. If you can get a good 5v5 team fight, that's where this Starhoppers composition really shines. Don't forget, on the desk, I said this should be free sailing for the Starhoppers because of how good their draft is. And a lot of that value comes from this right here, the team fight phase. You've got 2 ADCs to devour anything in front of them. Both of them have Exekins and an Oboe. That's a lot of garbage damage to go around as well. And the Yamoja ult combined with the Guan Yu ult can be devastating if used correctly. So all Starhoppers need is one good coordinated fight, and that might be enough to bring them back into this game.
I mean, yeah, as you said, huge team fight ultimate. You got Yamoja, and we can't undervalue the Cupid ultimate, that Fields of Love having a cripple on it as well. Obviously, you're not catching a Charybdis, but you're at least catching everyone else. As there is a 3-1-1 split. Very interesting to see, but looks like on the left side does look like Charybdis and Cernanos ults both coming out, and Fields of Love Vito going in. That's 3 ultimates. No Rivers Rebuke having come out, but unfortunately, an Ankh was used, and they're going to keep going. Rivers Rebuke finally does come out, does catch Kragerfro, does get the Scarab's Blessing, but brings him back into the fight in just a little bit. But Snowy does fall into the Titan room. Snowy falls, and Gumbo might just end while everyone's moving. Like, Journeyman just clean up the fight on the other side, and Gumbo's like, hey guys, I got the Titan, by the way. Just come in when you're ready.
I'll keep it warm for you over here. You guys do your own thing, and I'll just wait. I'll escort the minion waves in. And, Journeyman made it look fairly easy in this one. Like, that is a 20,000 gold lead as the Titan falls. They dropped 8 kills, but none of them really felt particularly impactful in this one. Starhoppers just didn't really find their avenue into this game. We saw the one good rotation from Vito early on, and I thought that might have been a turning point for the Starhoppers. It felt like the momentum might have been swinging in their direction finally, but Journeymen were very clean around all of these teamfight engagements. Anytime all 5 players were grouped up in one spot, it always came up blue team. And I do think that's just the coordination that they had. Every time Brachiozoid was a little overextended or was dangling himself out as bait, every single time Gumbo was there and ready. Josh the Landlord had the follow-up. Craig Afro was getting necessary farm. Corbin was off being a menace in the right side jungle. The coordination from the Journeyman was just there, and I didn't feel that from the Starhoppers.
Yeah, it was just a lot of... I don't know. I feel like everyone was trying to be the hero on the Starhoppers, and unfortunately, none of them were the hero they needed. I can especially quote, there was like early on the Clucknuts chasing down a tier. I don't think in any universe you're catching tier. I mean, if we want to look at builds, we saw at least 2 movement speed items. We were talking about it before. Those are nerfed movement speed items, by the way, from when they used to exist back when tier was a menace before. So, but even then, you're still not catching them, and I don't know. I feel like if we're going to the drawing board into game 2, I think we're looking for, if you want that hero thing, obviously the pressure in mid is great with Cernanos, you got great Cupid, but maybe go for more high-end picks, maybe try to, I know Starhoppers were the ones that banned Ishtar, maybe look to get Ishtar this time, and ban like Charybdis instead, because that Charybdis, I'm not going to lie, everyone did really, really great damage, but the fact was most of the engagements came on that Kreger throw there, and he just 3'd out that Whirlpool form and just nullified everything, and all of a sudden, all their engagement, all their abilities nullified because Charybdis hit beads and just 3'd away.
Yep. And if you dump all your cooldowns into a guy that doesn't die, that's very much a lost team fight. And that's something that a lot of teams struggle with when they pick these very team fight centered compositions where they're like, all right, we'll farm it out, we'll get to 15, 20 minutes and then just out team fight them. Is up until that point, your tools aren't really the best. I mean, you've got good mid pressure from this Kernanos, but just about everything else feels kind of awkward to have to fight around. Like the Bastet doesn't really pair well with anything else that you have on the board. The Bastet in a vacuum played fine, but just failed to really meld in with the rest of what the Starhoppers wanted to do. I'd like to see them pick something that's a little bit more cut and dry with what their game plan is going to be early on. Like, for example, if you have a Naja and a Mage, you know what your game plan is. You are Naja ulting someone and then Mage follow up on the bottom. That game plan is very wishy-washy with a team comp like what the Starhoppers had. It's very good if you get to the late game, but having nothing to do until then can sometimes really hamstring your initiative. So, like you said, if we're going back to the drawing board, I want them to pick something that says, this is what our idea is, this is how we're going to play this game, and then see them try to execute on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of go on the Bastet. Bastet, as you said, in a vacuum, performed decently. I mean, only 3, 5, and 3. I mean, that could be like 10 and 2, but definitely feel like Snowy might want to be on something a little bit more, especially if they want to go later into the things like the Cernanos mid. Obviously, it has great early pressure, but it's an ADC late game as well. Maybe go something to help funnel that Clucknuts a little bit more, just because I felt like, though the Cern had pressure, it just took 1 or 2 ganks and from Loki and like lost fights, and then all of a sudden Cernanos was on the back foot against the Merlin, which, as you said, early game we don't expect much, and all of a sudden he's getting kill here, kill there. So it should be very, very interesting to see how that they change up the draft going into game 2. For now, we're gonna go into a quick break as we set everything up, and we'll see you guys in just a few minutes.
Watching the ocean with you, baby, up with a slow motion crew, and we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us, and we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun, could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey, and I don't need to speak a single word. You got me holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding. the bass guitar. Simmer down and mess me up. Tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. And I drumming round in your red Ford. Shivers down my spinal cord. Oh, 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 oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding,
Here we go again. Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. If you don't wanna change, I can help you out. 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 Here we go again. Time is up and I'm calling up my friends. Ain't no wonder why, ain't no one to ride to. Here we go again. Call me up and you wanna be my friend. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide.
And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby, up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding. And I'll be running, possessed by a low, low voodoo. Fired up like a wolf on a full moon. And we're stuck in a la la land. The tides will turn without us. And I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word. 'Cause you got me holding, holding.
Welcome back, Quack and Smite League, to Game 2 between the Starhoppers and the Journeymen. Game 1 was a great fight and showing of the Journeymen's ability to just command a lead after gaining even just a small inch to move it the mile. And obviously, Starhoppers got a little bit of work to look at for their drafts going forward.
Yeah, I still want to see them pick up on a particular game plan and execute on it, because it didn't feel like they weren't playing well. Like, I think that would be incredibly unfair to say to the Starhoppers. It just felt like they lacked direction. When they worked together, they actually put together some pretty good runs there, but just having something that says, this is what our job is, this is what our game plan is, I think could go a long way for them. So I want to see them draft, if it's some kind of combo between their mid and jungle, if it's a very quick, easy setup. Athena's actually a lot better than a lot of teams really seem to know right now. That gives you a very easy game plan of, we're fishing for the taunts and we're killing whoever gets taunted by it. I want that kind of if A then B draft from the Starhoppers here. So we'll see if they take that direction or if they go back to this sprawling team fight composition that they had in game number 1.
Yeah, as I said it before we went on the break, I would very much like them to see like a Charybdis ban instead of the Ishtar. And actually, neither team even bans a Hunter this time. Not too surprising, as Ishtar is kind of like the big one, maybe Cupid. But we do have a respect ban on the tier. Apparently, Corbin did way too well for the liking of Starhoppers, and then the Emoja just so they can grab this Khepri and not have that follow-up. Leaves open a lot of strong picks on the other side.
Yeah, like, I don't know, maybe Ishtar, for example. And the Khepri, don't get me wrong, was very good, and I understand why you want to take that away, but leaving this Ishtar open is kind of a question mark for me, especially with how commanding that Hunter mid really seemed like it should have been. This is almost like telling them, okay, we tried it, now let's see you try it, because I do think Ishtar is equally comfortable in either role. There's a couple of Hunters right now that you see them picked up. Kernanos is a good example. You know that's a Hunter mid. Whereas if you see something like Xbalanque, that's almost certainly an ADC. With Ishtar, you get a lot more flexibility, both in what you want to do when you pick it and afterward, because you can still kind of flex this one and say, well, maybe we hold our second Hunter until after the second round of bans, and then make them waste a couple of them, because you don't really know where this pick is going. It's pretty strong in either role.
Especially if this does go in the hands of like the mid laner, then you have, I don't know, maybe the Charybdis back on the side of Kregafro. He had an amazing showing, and if Starhoppers decide to engage him on it again, I mean, that's another free engagement. As you said before, missed abilities. If you waste all those abilities, don't get the kill, then goodbye team fight. I do think Ganesh is actually probably gonna be a very, very good thing, especially for Khepri, and I would even say Cullen. Going into both these picks, just because of that Dharmic pillar is just gonna be super duper useful. But we saw it banned last time in the second phase. But how are you liking this Pele? Like, Snowy on the Bastet obviously did do some work, but wasn't impactful. But how are you feeling about this Pele maybe having more pressure and hyper carry movement?
Pele's for sure one of your best jungle options right now. We've been working for the last couple of months with, like, you've got about 4 or 5 top jungle picks, and then everything else kind of falls to the wayside as far as like what people prioritize, what people think is really strong. Pele has certainly earned her position in those top slots as an incredible tool. She gets that eye of the jungle, and she's not only difficult to kill because of the sustain, but her burst, man, is just so scary, so difficult to deal with. So I definitely like the swap up from the Bastet. Obviously, you were, like I said in death number 1, you were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for what you wanted to pick if you get 5 assassins banned away from you. So I like the idea to grab the Pele overall, and I like it even more to grab it here before you have the possibility that it gets banned away from you.
Yeah, I will say a very, very good pick. I think Ravana also probably a really good pick to counter that early aggression. Gonna be nice. But on her, am I like dreaming? Is that on her? I'm happy, but
yeah, on her's fine, I guess, is really the best analysis I can give of that. ADC right now is fairly open for what you pick over there. You're either grabbing Cupid or Ishtar, or you're grabbing whatever you want, and nobody's really going to bat an eye at it. You can pick like a late game X-Ball, you can pick an Uller and just run the field, and you can pick an on her and kind of split the difference, honestly. So I don't hate on her. I'm not crazy impressed by it either. I don't think it's necessarily the de facto best pick you could have grabbed here, but I often like it when teams kind of mix it up and don't pick directly off the tier list. Everybody's so obsessed with, oh, what's the best god for this role that I could be picking? Just play what you want, man. Like, if you make it look good, who cares how good other people think it is?
And that is a fair shout, especially at the middle level of play. Meta still matters, and all levels of play, honestly. But I do believe that comfort reigns supreme. We see it all the time in the pro scene where players' best gods aren't in meta, and all of a sudden they're not performing the best because they can't really play those gods and they get out pressure and yada yada. But when those gods become meta, that team's starting to run the league. So in this case, having it on her, if IC is really, really comfortable, I also think that'll be a really strong into Ishtar. I mean, Ishtar Blades of Retribution come out, you start throwing out those spears of CC immunity, be great. And on top of that, you got Vulcan as your backliner, able to help you peel with that knockup from the, I'm just going to call it the meatball, which should be very, very interesting. But on the other side, a very strong pick that I didn't think would go this far through the draft, but Neja just locked in at the bottom with a Thoth as an option for follow-up.
Yeah, and Naja kind of one that has fallen out of favor recently. Like, that used to be, you top pick or ban this in every single game, whether you're playing a real competitive set or you're queuing ranked. That is not a god people enjoyed playing against. But, I mean, getting through 10 rounds of bans and 10 rounds of picks and still being available is, I think, a pretty good indication of where people have dropped this god to in terms of where they favor it. Because Naja really doesn't feel crazy OP anymore. He's still good, don't get me wrong. Like, this is a very solid character, but I do think that teams are right to realize that, hey, maybe we can look for our support, which is so incredibly important in the current meta. Maybe we get one of these top contested hunters first, and then if Naja's still up and we still want it, then we can grab it later on. I definitely think that it's one that belongs in a draft phase, or at least in the conversation, but I think it has a much better home right here toward the bottom.
Which is fair enough, especially as you stated before, having that good setup. I mean, we were mentioning it for the Starhoppers, maybe to have that setup for the Neja and say a Burst Mage, but instead Thoth is now a great option. That Final Judgment, obviously not an ability to scoff at, can sit there during the entire ultimate of Neja and just charge for that full damage effect. We are going in the game, everything's normal and whatnot, but I'm excited to see how Journeymen go into this game and make the identity that we wanted Starhoppers to do, and how they're going to use it in the other direction, but also how the Starhoppers are going to react, especially, I believe, Kakalan probably a really strong soul laner comparatively to Raven. So, and then on top of that, you have Vulcan, Pele. I think they got away with the draft. I think Starhoppers win this draft again.
It's so tough for me to vote against specifically this Ishtar, because I do think this is definitely one of the better characters that you can nab right now. Her ult is so incredibly good. She's really just a Swiss Army knife of abilities where each one feels like it does something different, but also something really impactful. But at the same time, Pele, probably in my eyes a better jungler than Naja right now. Vulcan, one of the more difficult, if not the most difficult characters to deal with out of the mid lane right now. You're probably right in saying that the Starhoppers got away with this one, but it's very hard to discount the Journeyman's draft regardless.
I mean, as you said, yeah, that very much an Ishtar. I was scared for a moment, not gonna lie. I was watching Vito on the solo side get low. That was very scary. As Josh the Landlord dashes in, does miss the root, but Clucknuts does have to get those juke shoes, man. Clucknuts must have been running a marathon, because his shoes are fresh and ready for those jukes.
Yeah, nice and greased up as well. He kind of electric slided his way out of 2 different CCs that should have spelled his end there, so no aggression paying off from Gumbo. But hang on, right side,
Vito?
Corbin is still plenty aggressive over here, and it's actually going to net the kill onto Vito. That is a very early kill onto this Kakalan, who supposed to be a lane bully.
I'm sorry, my brain cells, my solo lane brain cells are just like, what just happened? Because I feel like at that point you just run away, right? Like, that's the right thing to do. Wait for your salmon leap to come back up and maybe do something there. But great kill on Corbin. Great first blood opportunity. Just the ability to recognize that like what's Vito doing? He's gonna die for it. So very, very interesting. But it does look like Starhoppers do, strangely enough, have the pressure over Journeyman over in the dual line. But just wait one moment, because Gumbo's over here looking for maybe a gank, potentially waiting for the CC. Unfortunately, Roxoid did miss his remove obstacles onto any targets, and on her will get out. And so will Anime, but instead Anime does get sashed and does force out the shell. So that is a relic, important relic down for Starhoppers.
Yeah, great impale there from on her. Toolsy really separated that one pretty effectively, and it doesn't look quite over here, as you can see rotations coming through from the Starhoppers. They still want to contest this, and Gumbo, he already sashed in.
4 members, Pele and Vulcan here, and they immediately get the kill on Gumbo, staying a little bit over too long. Second blood going to side of Starhoppers. I mean, that was a great bait. I'm not gonna lie, from Animated. He just stood there and was like, here, have my little beetle booty. And great recognizing from his team to know that was a great, just let's get the jungler out.
Hey man, ain't nothing little about that booty. That is a dump truck on my man Capri. Let's call a spade here. And he definitely dangled it for every little bit that it was worth. And, you know, Gumbo was just enticed by the rhythmic movement of this what are they called? Cicada beetle, I think is what it's actually technically called. I call him the thick bug daddy because he is basically beetle Jesus resurrecting people from the dead. But no need for that if you can just bait the enemy team into doing all your dirty work for you. And Gumbo certainly got drawn in by that spider's web and ended up falling there. And worthwhile kill as well, because that's when a lot of that farm on the right hand side was up, and that's inactive farm that was not going down. That takes away from his net worth. That's a very meaningful kill.
Yeah, and Vito gonna die again. Oh, does miss the ultimate here, but the 3 will be good enough. Scary. Like, obviously, we've got really good sides. Animated, as we just said, great just ability and the ability to help bait the jungler and, you know, just dead. But unfortunately, Vito on the other side, the person who probably make the best use out of that kind of pressure, just getting soloed and unfortunately not able to do much against this Robin.
Hang on, Starhoppers on the left-hand side, though. They're looking for something on Craig Afro. There's a lot of people here, and they want the Ganesh instead.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Blaze Retribution did come out and cancel out the pool from... Oh my goodness, that abduct would have been amazing if Snowy had been able to follow up, but great Blaze Retribution out of Craig Afro, hitting 5 just in time to stop that. That's... Oh my goodness, dual lane. Getting spicy up in here.
Yeah, definitely very spicy, and a lot of credit to the ADC for basically playing support there. You don't see a whole lot of support peeling for, or excuse me, ADC peeling for his support, but that was great recognition from Craig Afro, realizing all he needs is that one good cripple into a stun, and then they both get to walk away there for free. But I do want to turn my attention over to this solo lane, because like you've said, it's been a bloodbath over here, and it's only going in one direction, because Corbin has a stranglehold over this side of the map so far. And I do think this is a very positive matchup for this Robin, especially in the very early levels, because you get Bluestone on Kakulin. That makes you take a lot of wave aggro, and that makes it so that it's basically a race to the bottom for the first 2 to 3 levels. And when you have something like a Robin that gets not only a health shield, but also because of this death toll gets a little bit of additional sustain on top of that, he's always going to win that race to the bottom, because it just takes so much longer to bring him down. And Corbin has done an excellent job so far in this game of really asserting that pressure and making sure that Vito knows, I am very comfortable in this matchup, and I know exactly how I need to manage my health bar to make sure that I pressure you in. Vito, again, the solo sub in this one, and Corbin is not making it look easy for him.
Yeah, definitely not a fun time for the sub of Starhoppers. But Gumbo, I think if Paley was there, Gumbo just dies. But Clucknuts is going to take a lot of poke for... he just basically traded even with the jungler there. As we do see some fighting over here. It's just over Totem. I don't think anyone will die unless Neja chooses to go in. But Snowy looking to rotate on the right side of the map, potentially relieve some of this pressure. Does get a great route from Vito, and now the 2 just divers are going in. Unfortunately, Vito no longer has any more CC. He does lose the transformation as well, so that extra damage is going to go, and it's a failed gank from Snowy. Very much. I thought there was going to be more that happened there, not going to lie.
Yeah, but Robin a very difficult character to bring down, and I think that we've all seen the mitigation build played out where he is literally an unkillable demon, but kind of shifting the attention to a more damage-oriented build with this one, or at least some hybrid optimization from this Capone. This Death Toll, like from this Robin. The Death Toll, again, gives him a bunch of sustain, and that's not going anywhere. He hits level 20, and all of those Death's Embrace procs are going to be very impactful on a team where you're not going to want to build a crazy amount of anti-heal against, because it's basically just this Robin and maybe the Nausea healing that you're trying to cancel. So that's going to get decent value, and he does a bunch of damage. Glad Shield makes him a menace not only to bring down, but also to just try to live when you're trying to go on him. So Corbin definitely needs to make his impact known on other parts of the map. He's played the laning phase masterfully up until this point, but we're still only 8 minutes in, and it is still not curtains. It's only 1,000 gold that they've gotten for their troubles for the Journeymen. You really need to see them transfer this lead to the other parts of the map, make a meaningful mid rotation, make a meaningful gold for your rotation. That's where this lead really starts to get out of control for them.
Yeah, I mean, 100% is now a gank. Vito in some trouble here as the Neja ultimate does pull him up in the air, and now Ravana down at the bottom is just ready to kill him, and unfortunately Snowy can't do anything. Snowy's one Pele, not going to be able to help much just through the massive damage. It didn't even get the blue buff beforehand. In fact, stopped doing the blue buff specifically to go help Vito, and 4 members of the red team are just sitting here and it's like, oh, you didn't do this? Now, though, they're here at the speed buff, 4 members, but Starhoppers are coming back. The Khepri and the Vulcan here maybe being able to do something, but unfortunately the objective is gone and not much value here. Is now Pele ulting into the fight. Gumbo falls to the Pele ultimate here. Volcanic Surge too much. Brachiozoid does get a great Mail of Renewal off and might even get out, but unfortunately he is getting boxed in. Does get ulted by the Spear of Mortal Pain here. Unfortunately, remove obstacles is good enough. Ravana on the other side catching animated from being able to do much, and the rest of the red team will lose Gumbo, but they get everything from out of the buffs there.
Bro, somebody needs to get a handle on my man Gumbo, because he went in on the Loki game, make no mistake, but he is going in way too deep, way too early on this Nausea. He died, again, for the second kill of the game earlier in left lane, where he got baited in by the Beetle Booty, but kind of baited in on the right side too there, right? Like, Pele just said, what are you gonna do, fight me? But oh no, you're actually gonna fight me down here, okay, and just kind of turned around the damage on him. I think that if Nausea just walks away there, that's an incredibly successful invade for the Journeymen, but even giving up a little bit gives them some kind of avenue back into this game for the Starhoppers. That's a very momentum-based play, and they're carrying that over to this red buff.
Yeah, and we do see the Earthshaker does come out, but Ishtar rotating over. Snowy in trouble, does get caught by the Jolt ability. Neja does have the carry up in the air. Vulcan, unfortunately, not able to escape much. In fact, the on her pillar not helping, but instead hurting. The sash great for keeping Gumbo alive for just a moment more, and Icy does pick up the kill, but does fall shortly after. Final Judgment hitting a little bit too hard there.
And that's just such a feels bad if you're the Starhoppers, because, like I said, you were playing exclusively off of momentum there. You absolutely did not have an advantage that would cause you to invade that red buff. That was just, spirits are up, we're feeling a little bit better, let's try to get something for our troubles on this left-hand side. And to get shut down like that on the one upswing that you've had this game is sometimes crippling for teams that just really need to find an avenue back into the game. I like to talk a lot about the intangibles of Smite, the things that don't show up on the scoreboard. And the mental state of your team is certainly one that I believe belongs in that conversation. Because in addition to being 4,000 gold down, in addition to being 4,000 experience down, now you got shut down with what could have been an opportunity back into that game. And juggling those mental gymnastics while also playing a set where you're already down one game, you're already down in the second game as well, that takes a lot of mental fortitude to fight your way back into. So Starhoppers really going to have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps here, because this is not at all a very pleasant position to try to fight your way back into.
Definitely not, especially with the Zervana Ravana wasn't even there is the problem. It was like Ishtar rotated over, and I think that was the big proponent for how they won that fight. Blades of Retribution, just an insane ability on top of, as we stated before in game 1, the versatility. You could not be there, or you can walk up to them and just barrel blast them with a spread shot, and you're outputting so much damage. It's unfortunately not much you can really do. Earthshaker does come out from Clucknuts, attempting to steal the red buff from Thoth, but Thoth dashing away. But going back, yeah, they got shut down, and hopefully they don't let that affect their mentals too much, because that will be how they get back in this game. But Ganesh does use the Dharmic Pillars here. Almost gets the kill on Clucknuts. Final Judgment almost comes out. But unfortunately, Josh the Landlord did not see Snowy come up on the backside and will follow the Vulcan from the gank. Krakenfro gets soloed by 2 Icy over there, but Brachiozoid trying to get a kill onto the Vulcan. Scarab's Blessing gets out just in time to save him, and unfortunately, Nejad's a little bit too late to the party. I was about to say, if blue team brought that ring toss back to Vulcan and it killed him, I was
imagine.
That would have been the biggest feels bad. But that is a huge upswing for Starhoppers, I think.
Yeah, they get 3 for 0 unanswered, and it's one thing when it's you win a fight and it's convincing, but it's another thing where every single side of the map feels like something just went well there. Cucullin, it didn't go great, but he didn't lose anything, and that's kind of about all you could ask for right now. You won in the mid, you won in the jungle, and you won in the left lane. That's almost every side of the map, and everyone goes, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe we can fight our way back into this one. We've narrowed the gold lead to just about 1,500. That's a very fightable gap right now. Oni Fury due to spawn in about 2 more minutes. You've got plenty of time to set up for it. You've got Vulcan ult. That's probably the biggest single instance of damage on the map, though. I think that Final Judgment would certainly have a couple of question marks to give you on that case, but Starhoppers have found their way back into this game. It's been a little over-aggression from Journeymen that have put them in that position, but by their own merit, the Starhoppers are at least in a position where they can fight back into this one and feel like it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah, I'm also going to say it's got to be a big morale boost, especially for your Icy over there. You just soloed an Ishtar, Krakenfro, who had such an impactful impact, for lack of better words, in that mid fight, and all of a sudden you just go back. It's like, hey guy, I'm gonna just solo you now. So I'm hoping that Starhoppers can maybe look at this Oni Fury. As stated, it was 2 minutes then. Now it's about 1:20, and maybe do something, especially if Icy's feeling himself over there. The greatest reason of picking an honor is that 1v1 potential.
Yep.
Especially here, but it does look like Journeymen are grouping up onto this Pyromancer. Vito immediately going to go in and make sure he can do as much as he could possibly can. Does get the Pele blink. Aegis comes out of Josh from the Landlord, and unfortunately it's not enough to save his life as Clucknuts does pick up the kill. And now blue team going to keep going. No Spear of Mortal Pain as Vito had opened up with it, and red team going to kind of just bide their time, wait for someone to step out. And Pyromancer are going to get pulled by Starhoppers.
Yeah, not a lot of cooldowns to work with here, though. They burned a lot of their ults. They do still have Kepri ult, so that's at least something they're working with, but that's not going to help you secure this one.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ganesh is still here, has that one ability, and Corbin's still here. Doesn't manage to steal it, but now Ganesh just using his remove obstacles after Corbin dies here. Maybe they look to Brachiozoid, no dash on the side of the elephant, and he might just die here. Unfortunately, Clucknuts with a little bit of an unfortunate turret placement. Brachiozoid will now leave the great ultimate from Krakenfro. The Blades of Retribution don't always have to be an offensive ult, and right now we're seeing a beautiful display of how he can peel out and save. Even if it's just your support's life, that's just the life that's just a kill bounty, not in the pocket of Starhoppers.
Yeah, and speaking of the pockets of Starhoppers, now that they've got that Pyromancer in there, they've finally shored up this gold deficit. It's been as bad as about 2,700 in this one, but now all the way back in the opposite direction. Now 200 gold in their favor, and this Oni Fury is up, and make no mistake, the Starhoppers are on a high right now. They certainly want to grab this one. I don't even know if the Journeymen know.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a ward on it, so I would assume they don't. This might be the freest fire Oni Fury, and Vulcan ult might not even have been necessary. I mean, we saw Bach fire kill it before the Earthshaker landed. I'll take it. Obviously, Journeymen don't know it's up. The ultimate's down, but I mean, you heard Gold Fury, and if anyone was in the vicinity, maybe you heard the shoo.
Well said. I couldn't have put it better myself there, but Starhoppers now with that Oni Fury, they have an option to press their advantage a little bit further. They've been on the back foot for what feels like this entire game so far, but now they have their first real tangible advantage, and they've got Robin on the right-hand side. We've talked a lot about how difficult this guy is to bring down, but he is very far forward, and he is without a paddle on this creek.
Yeah, unfortunately, it does look like that they are trying to just focus less on Corbin here and more of the Trebuchet, but Journeymen are grouping up 4 members over here. Gumbo, Brockazoid, Josh the Landlord, all over here. Only one lacking is the Ishtar, and she is farther ahead over here than the Honor is. And now a fight does seem to be brewing. Final Judgment does connect on the Veto, just Veto though. And that's going to be a disengage as they didn't get any real damage from that Mage ultimate. But Clucknuts here to do some extra damage. Pele Blink ulting onto Josh the Landlord here. Does get hit by the Jolt, but Icy on the other side will hit with the ultimate. And great Earthshaker to connect on a Brockazoid. Unfortunately, just barely misses Craigerfro, but Craigerfro will die. The Icy feeling it on this on her. Maybe I had some doubts, but now Icy cleansing all of them. This man's feeling himself. Solos Craigerfro now gets the kill in the team fight. And Starhoppers feeling good. They're looking to get this T1 tower, and Corbin gonna have to be very careful to die. Snowy does pick up the kill. The first stability of the Pirate class, being able to just secure that before he can jump away again. Great fight from Starhoppers, and they're gonna go for more with this tier 2 here.
Yeah, they're going to ride this high all the way into this tier 2 tower, and with 5 people, they do still have the option to, at the very least, look to contest some of this farm. They're not going to let this speed buff go unanswered here, and I wanted to see them potentially at least flirt with the idea of pulling this Fire Giant. You've still got 2 members with quite a bit of time still coming, but now that they've got about 3,000 gold, and a lot of that's still in pocket, I think it's probably smarter that they just take to this farm and kind of strip some of this away and start backing up. You really have to spend the gold instead of just having it in pocket before you start to feel that advantage. 2,000 gold for a lot of these people, 1,500 on the rest of them. So smart from the Starhoppers to back up here and really shore up their defenses and make sure that coming into this next engagement, they are in a spot where they can start to take a meaningful lead here, because 4,000 is the biggest lead of this game in either direction. Don't forget, 10 minutes ago, it was 2,500 in favor of the Journeymen, but Starhoppers aren't going to go quietly in the O2 fashion, man. They are definitely still here, still willing to play, and still on the front foot now. They can certainly look for this next Gold Fury spawn, but I think that about 20 minutes in, like I said last game, this is when you can start legitimately considering looking for this Fire Giant. So we'll be curious will they turn their attention. For now, it's the dual lane.
Yeah, and great. I'm just not gonna lie, Gumbo, that was an amazing blink, but an even better just ultimate from the Onhurst is completely negated the sash. Gumbo is going to die to the Paleo ultimate, having to ult away and blink having to ult away from Snowy, and unfortunately not being able to do that. But now Earthshaker might catch Craigerfro out. Unfortunately does not. Pyroclast gonna have to do a little bit more damage, but Pele, it's Pele. She just has to use her third ability, and she's catching you no matter what. It does look like Journeymen are trying to catch up. The only one not over here is the Robin, but Robin feeling kind of comfy on the right side, and they don't really need him. As if you're fighting over something, why? But on the other hand, Starhoppers really want this T2 tower.
Yeah, they're going to start this siege here. That doesn't look like Journeymen really want to put up too much of a fight. This is what we call a soft contest, where you're here and you watch it go down and maybe trade out some damage, but the idea was never to defend that one. And Corbin certainly didn't have that idea in mind. He is very comfortable just saying, guys, let me know when you put out the fires on the rest of the map. I'm going to keep farming. If it looks like there's something that you need me for, let me know. But otherwise, I am totally fine with just continuing to farm out to 20, which, by the way, has been reached by 2 members of the Starhoppers. Now Pele and Onher both taking over, 2 Icy and Snowy, with that starter item upgrade available to them. And it's actually going to be this Death's Temper for this Onher. And if you thought that crit Onher was scary before, what about crit Onher that does 35% additional basic attack damage to you? That is something that I would see in my nightmares.
Yeah, unfortunately, oh my god, that's scary, especially with how great Icy's been playing these fights. Unfortunately, Honor just does a lot of damage. He has a built-in exit into his passive, and now he has Silver Branch, so like, Silver Branch, oh no, Corbin. It's just going to shred a lot, but now Corbin over here going to run to his T1 tower, does still have not the ultimate. Overhead kick is good for the final auto, but unfortunately Ganesh couldn't really help out on the other wall. Snowy gonna do a lot of damage against that Corbin there, and he's just gonna fall. great pick for this Fire Giant, especially. They're on the Gold Fury right now. Maybe they can get this Gold Fury and rotate over, but it might just look like a free Fire Giant for Starhoppers this game.
Yeah, they're going to have to be very quick here, but it doesn't look like they are interested. They're going to turn their attention to the left side, so it's only the Ganesh and the Thoth possible to steal this one, but zoned out very effectively here by the remainder of the Starhoppers. Earthshaker comes out, and Fire Giant goes down to the Starhoppers, who now have the option to start sieging up these towers. If they can net this tier 2 and maybe shove their way into this Phoenix, they could blow this game wide open.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much the side of Journeyman can do here. I mean, we do have Robin coming up. I just want to take a note and look at Robin's build. In most cases, I think, all right, he's Robin. He's going to do a lot in these fights, but I'm kind of concerned for the utility of this Ravana and how great he's going to be. That's looking like something I'd see on a Bellona or an Amaterasu more than I would see on a Robin. We have yet to see him in a 5v5 fight, so maybe he could prove me wrong on that one. But I'm a little concerned on just the lack of maybe damage or tankiness that you might want from the Ravana there, like sacrificed through Frostbound.
Right. So what this build serves to do is specifically to counter a Vulcan and an ADC, because Vulcan doesn't have a lot of tools to create space from you outside of just meatballing you, and guess what? Robin's going to kickflip that and then stick to you with this Frostbound hammer. So very effective into specifically the Vulcan matchup, and then ideally you would want more tankiness against an Anhur, but the thought process here, at least from what I can collect, is I'm just going to beat him to the bottom. And I don't know if that's really true when he's doing all of this crit damage to you. He's got anti-heal built so that Death's Embrace isn't going to be as impactful for you. If he can even get to level 20 to get it finished off, because still level 18 here, there are a lot of question marks for the Journeymen, and the Starhoppers are posing a lot of questions right now on this Phoenix line.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Journeymen are going to have to come up a little bit big here. 5k gold deficit here. Obviously, probably a little bit of gold. Both teams have backed and came up to this fight with their gold. And it's going to be very, very interesting. We're especially going to have to see how Gumbo plays this fight against Snowy, or if Snowy's just going to rotate over the left side and decide while this minion wave is here and Gumbo's busy in mid, if they're going to rotate. Animated and Icy going for it, but Ganesh does drop the Dharmic Pillars. Brachiosaurus does use the Ankh, and they're immediately going to go Icy. Icy does have a great beads there. Frenzy is out. Final Judgment does connect, and unfortunately, Robin will miss the ultimate and not be able to catch, but he will get animated there. Neja does miss the ultimate here, misses the ring toss. Unfortunately, not enough damage to get this Icy. And Icy's still alive, by the way. Everyone's gunning for him, and he's still alive. Jumps the wall, and now outside Starhoppers are backing up. The Fire Giant sustaining them up. And if Journeymen keep chasing this, they could even turn around and maybe re-engage back with Journeymen outside of Phoenix. But unfortunately,
yeah. But the damage has certainly been done if you're the side of the Journeymen. They needed to perform that defense immaculately, and I think that they certainly did that. That was a great Ganesh ult from Brachiosaurus to make sure that they couldn't finish off that Phoenix. That trapped everybody in, forced the beads and the jump from 2 Icy, and it also forced the Capri ult onto him. And we were talking about how he lived so long. He was pumping out all that damage. He was surviving at 1 HP. That's kind of what happens when you just jump out and get Capri ult, and everyone's like, well, I mean, we gotta let him live, right? And so they just backpedaled their way out of there, but they backpedaled their way out of there. Like, now they no longer have that siege attempt. They're going to be losing Fire Giant fairly soon. They've got about a minute or so, maybe 30 seconds before that's due to spawn. They don't have this buff for much longer. You don't really get another chance at that siege. They had one opportunity to crack this base from the Journeymen, and the Journeymen held strong. This is a lead for the Starhoppers that doesn't feel good to fight into, but it's not one that will completely blow you out of the water just yet. They certainly have every opportunity to fight their way back in, and they certainly proved it there. They have a very good base defense composition, Thoth, one of the best at it, because he can both poke you and clear the wave from a safe distance. And Starhopper's going to have to come up with a different game plan if they want to crack into this base for the Journeymen, because they certainly made it look pretty simple to defend that one.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really say anything about it. Obviously, Thoth had a great final judgment, made Icy. Not only did he almost die, he almost got one shot by final judgment. I think if he maybe charged it for like a second more, that is a definite kill, but at that point you might have lost the opportunity. But I also want to say, I saw Gumbo blink ult at that on her. I feel like
I
This
think
nade
at
drop can
is
do a lot of
definitely
things.
the operative word there, because it wasn't on him, it was just at him.
Yeah, I will admit it was at him. He didn't miss it, and I'm feeling like a lot of this in defense, and we had a great defense from Journeyman, right? But I feel like that could have been so much better if Gumbo maybe didn't tunnel vision the kill. If he had maybe picked on Snowy or Clucknuts, maybe picked one of them instead. Now you're looking at 2 kills, maybe 3 kills, because now that extra damage that would have been on Gumbo isn't on him because he's taken someone up in the air and they've killed him. So maybe Journeyman kind of looked to clean up, communicate a little bit more with Gumbo, or Gumbo communicate a little bit more with the team to maybe be like, hey, do this, do that. I think Journeyman like actually have a good shot. They might be 6k down, but we just saw a great defense at 6k down with against Fire Giant. So gonna have to see how Journeyman go forward.
And now they have the opportunity to step up into the jungle and prove what they can do in the streets, in the gutters here, because it's a lot easier to defend when you get that 6-man in the Phoenix. But now that you have to fight into the jungle where you don't get the safety net, you don't get to just say, we're going to stand here and you have to take a whole bunch of damage to get to us, it can be a whole lot more difficult to actually serve an advantage in these fights. And what a cool pose from Robin there, by the way. That is actually really sick. That's like wallpaper material right there. But I do want to go back to Gumbo here, who, by the way, seems to just love this Deathbringer. And I'm never going to take a Deathbringer away from a man who just really thinks that Deathbringer is what you need to get it done, because it absolutely is your item to deal a whole bunch of damage to one guy. But I'm just not sure if I'm sold on Deathbringer game 1 on Loki and then Deathbringer before any flat pen on Naja. I think that maybe if that's a Jotun's Wrath, you're a lot more comfortable, but, you know, if you think the Deathbringer is the way to go, I'm not going to tell you no, because you're definitely flashier and more ambitious than I am.
I mean, you could go Jotuns, you could go Brawlers. I mean, they do have an on her with Devos, and you got a Pele there as well, 2 really potent healers. But yeah, I will agree that Deathbringer, I feel like is a little. I think Gumbo is just. It's a little sketchy, yeah. Because 1, you have to hit your ultimates, but 2, it just doesn't bring as much damage as say having flat pen or having maybe a percent pen item. Because especially since you went Magi's, I feel like you've lost that ability to have the Deathbringer there, because now you are lacking pen for say this Kakulin and this Kepri. Like you're not gonna be able to hit them as hard, and you're counting a little bit more on your carries to do that damage, which kind of feels bad as a jungle, I think, when you can't do enough damage.
Yeah, and you really do need to effectively kill someone with this composition. This is not a god or really even a draft where you can say, well, we almost got him, so this fight's going to go very smoothly for us. I think that Naja, more often than not, needs to find one successful pick to open up a fight and really make it feel like you got your value out of the pick, because he doesn't teamfight particularly well. It's kind of like old Loki with CC, where it's like, okay, this guy is dead, and there's nothing they can do about it. Naja's really kind of, you have beads or you are dead. And we haven't seen a whole lot of that fulfillment from this Naja, and now we're going to see Gold Fury go down. We're going to have to turn our attentions to the right-hand side of the map, because don't forget, that's right when Fire Giant spawns too.
Yeah, unfortunately, Red Team's going to have to be very, very careful. Obviously, it doesn't look like anyone's really backing. We do see Thoth and the Ganesha in mid lane, maybe being able to contest this Fire Giant over the wall. Final Judgment would be really great, but Thoth, instead of going for a red buff invade, the only one contesting here is actually Corbin. Ganesha is coming over, might be able to use Dharmic Pillars, but Vito doing a great job with Corbin, but Corbin might get in. But great Spear of Mortal Pain from Vito to avoid that just ultimate ability, being able to hit on that Fire Giant, maybe steal it. But Snowy going on to Kragerfo, does force out the shell, does get out Blades of Retribution, but the stun misses, and unfortunately Kragerfo will just die for it. Gumbo is still there fighting, does have his Agis Cloak, so unfortunately any CC will not help, but those also there to help peel him out, and Snowy will be like, yeah, I'm good, as the rest of the team just pushing up right.
Yep, very happy with their Fire Giant marching their way down toward this Phoenix, and they do have Draugr buff, which makes this Phoenix a little bit tankier, but this is still 4 Fire Giant members.
Yeah, I mean, that is a great Ganesh ult once again. Does get Blink out of Corbin, and even Beads out of Icy, and now they're going to just go back in. Now that ultimate's gone, now Onk making sure that the team can't heal. Great Impale out of On Her. I can't say this enough, but Icy, feeling himself on this honor. I've probably said it like 10 times, but it's insane just seeing how well this honor is doing well for this Starhoppers team.
And Snowy has looked so much better on this Pele than the Bastet, and that's even with the knowledge that, again, she played pretty well on the Bastet. Like, it wasn't the Bastet that was bad, but much better on this Pele, and now Starhoppers with another wave here have another chance to walk in, but seem a little bit trepidatious with all 5 members of the Journeymen. They're going to let the Earthshaker rip and see if they can get anything. Good damage on the Brachiosaurus. They might go in here.
Yeah, see Vito blink and ult onto Craigerfro here. Craigerfro is turning out a lot of damage, and Corbin now zoning too. Snowy is on the fight though. Corbin gonna have to be careful. Scarab's Blessing is used to keep the Khepri alive as he's in this fight. Great use of it. Icy has to use his shell there. Make sure, not Icy, Vulcan have to use his shell there in order to keep on her alive. And now they're still sitting here. Fire Giant buff still here, and what's Journeyman can do? They've now lost probably their best person to deal with this backline. Neja's going to have a crazy sash and ultimate in order to do much, which, by the way, doesn't have ultimate. It seems to have used it in mid lane or used it to escape. And it's just, this fight on the right side is going to be basically whether or not they can have more ultimates than the side of Starhoppers, though it does look like Starhoppers do have the Earthshaker. Dharmic Pillars does come out. Belt of Frenzy also comes out, but great ultimate out of Craigerfro there. Does manage to stun multiple, but unfortunately, Phoenix will fall. Brachiosaurus will fall soon after, and now Craigerfro on an island by himself will fall to Clucknuts. And now 5 members of the Starhoppers are still here in their base. Journeymen only have Corbin spawning for the 3rd member, but Icy's gonna have to be careful here before he gets dove by the Ravana or Gumbo, but instead they're gonna go back off. Starhoppers content to get the right side Phoenix and might reset for another.
Yeah, they're going to turn their attentions toward this middle bird, and with both of the dual lane members from the Journeymen still down, they have the opportunity to look for this bird. I don't think that it's going to be very easy to cling on to this one. Already some damage dealt to it, so they're going to go in here, and Robin blinking in. They want the fight.
Yeah, Robin, unfortunately, he gets a little bit of front load damage onto Icy, but he's no longer so weak anymore. Windfire Wheels does come out of the Neja, does pick up Clucknuts, but unfortunately, as we said before, doesn't have the damage to get the kill. Earthshaker will miss the mark, but unfortunately, Gumbo will still fall. It's a great sash, does manage to get a lot of damage, but Snowy has a great beads in order to counter the damage. And now 5 members into the Titan room, and unfortunately, they do have the dual lane spawning here to maybe do a defense. Blaze of Retribution coming up very, very soon. Dharmic Pillars did come up, and wow. My goodness, Animated will fall. So a great Dharmic Pillars caught at the wall, and Craigerfro there to clean it up. And now, side of Journeyman trying to chase down, see if they can get any more kills. Starhoppers are low, so it's gonna be a bit dicey, but looks like they're gonna disengage.
Yeah, support sub, by the way, making that next to perfect Ganesh ult to defend the Titan there. And I don't think that they necessarily would have gotten it, but it made it a lot easier when you have that perfectly placed Dharmic Pillars to really push everybody out. But even though they defend the Titan, they still did lose 2 birds in that engagement. And with Fire Giant due to spawn in about 50 seconds now, the enhanced variant, naturally, which does more damage, makes it even more difficult for you to really defend what remaining structures you have. Journeymen have their backs against the wall here. They had a stranglehold on the early game, and they really just kind of let it slip so far. And now they're kind of dealing with the transgressions of the mistakes that they made earlier. Like, Starhoppers should not have had a way back into this game. 3,000 gold in the lead at 8 minutes should have been coffins on not only the game, but also the set in favor of the Journeymen. But Starhoppers are incredibly spunky, incredibly scrappy. They are not willing to go down just that easily and go down in 2-0 fashion. Now, with this EFG spawning, they could seal the deal and put us to a game 3 in the next 2 to 3 minutes if the Journeymen can't stand up and can't make a miracle defense happen on this Titan.
I mean, we've seen Brachiosaurus do it now twice, where he has amazing defenses. Yeah. Both the Khepri game having great plays there, and now the Ganesh game having great defenses. It'll be a lot easier, but as I will agree with you that this EFG will make it incredibly difficult. Corbin is sitting here, does have his ultimate ready. Great Spirit of Mortal Pain, isn't able to confirm anything or do anything, but Craigerfro on the backline gonna die to Snowy. No, Snowy died to Craigerfro. Great Final Judgment to be able to do some damage onto this Pele, but unfortunately now the entirety of Starhoppers coming in. Josh Landlord has to dash out, does get the long dash, so unfortunately for the side of Starhoppers will not be able to hop to him and get the kill. Neja manages the back just before the entirety of Starhoppers comes. I saw him on the screen for a split second. It's like, oh, that could be spicy, but good call the back there. EFG for Starhoppers and a kill.
Yeah, and they're playing this very slowly and very methodically here. I thought that with Dharmic Pillars down, with that final judgment down, and without Craig Afro to stand strong on the defense, that maybe Starhoppers would have wanted to push their advantage and try for this end. I think that might have been a potentially misguided call, but if you think about it, what do you really lose even if you don't get the Titan here? Worst case scenario, you probably lose a couple of towers. That's not going to be the game for you, but they want to take this very slow, do all of it right, check all of the boxes before they push their way up. And now the right Phoenix falls again, left-hand side due to fall as well. Starhoppers looking very good.
Unfortunately, the Journeymen, not like all, like half their team, we had 3 members go over to the right side of the map just to defend it against the minions. I feel like they could have kept the left side Phoenix, maybe defended, and now, unfortunately, they've now got no birds. Middle bird is set to spawn here soon, but Starhoppers are waiting and ready for it. Not willing to quite go into that Titan room quite yet. Want to make sure all their boxes are checked and dotted their I's.
Cross the T's, too. Don't forget about the T's.
Can't forget about the T's. But looks like the Journeymen, though they were wait in their base, they have now gone into the fight. Great ultimate out of the entirety of Journeyman, let's be honest. They get a pick onto Icy, the single most important member here, and now they're still fighting. Brachiosaurus is low here. Scarab's Blessing onto Snowy, is going to decide to use that aggressively. Has fallen off though, doesn't get the kill. In fact, second kill of the fight, manages to pick up Snowy. Great kills onto the side of Josh the Landlord. Animated is going to potentially fall here. Unfortunately, ring toss RNG a little bit late, but great peel from his team. Clucknuts will pick up Corbin here. Gumbo is low, looking for a potential kill on the back line, but Josh the Landlord, a 3rd kill, and now a 4th kill in favor of the Journeymen. A great engagement. Minions do almost get their Titan, but I feel like that was worth it at that point. Now, though, they have to be very careful to respawn.
Yeah, minions almost kill Titan and almost kill Josh the Landlord, who squeaks his way back to base with about 5 HP, and they're still chasing Animated on this Khepri, but they're not going to get him in. They're not going to get a whole lot off of this push either. They might be able to knock down this tower, but with how low this Titan is, all the Starhoppers have to do is get 1 damage dealer to this Titan. And I'm not even sure that they're going to live. Look at those. He's not on the Titan. The minion wave is taking the Titan.
Oh no, this is curtains! This is curtains! Winions! Just Winions win the game for Starhoppers after a great, amazing pushback from Journeyman. Unfortunately, they didn't leave enough people behind to clear the minions. They had to cover 3 waves. And unfortunately, they had just Thoth to deal with all of them. And I'm sorry, but the Thoth isn't full clearing 3 waves like that in time for a 1 health Titan.
Oh, my head hurts, man. That was such a great defense from the Journeymen there to make sure that they could stand strong in this game and they weren't going to go down off of that push, but just didn't do their homework. That's really all you had to do there, was make sure you get all of the waves pushed up. You need 1 Phoenix so that you can start to heal up your Titan, and they just got a little too greedy. They wanted to try to find farm on the map. They wanted the tier 2 tower and mid to go down. They desperately wanted to get that last kill onto Animated and bring down the Khepri, and because of that, like you said, they weren't paying enough attention to the most important thing on the map, and that is always going to be your Titan. So now 1-1, the Starhoppers come out of seemingly nowhere and even up this set.
I mean, all I gotta say, those scarab cheeks look divine, apparently, to the side of Journeyman. Gumbo really wanted those, both early game and then obviously at the late game where he's chasing with Craigerfro. But I will say that was a very, very strong fight from both teams. I think Icy, I would love to see on her again. I'm not gonna lie, Icy looked very, very comfortable on it. Late game, obviously, it wasn't like that big and flashy, but he's still doing the damage and still being the hunter and very strong. And honestly, I like what the Starhoppers did this game. I'm not going to lie. They did very, very good. Maybe you change out the Khepri because it gets banned or the other team picks it up, but making sure you have good secure Clucknuts on like a evasive mid that does a lot of damage. Icy on something he's comfortable on. Snowy, let's be honest, Snowy on something that's good. Yeah, Snowy. Amazing job. I feel like most of those fights, other than that last one, Josh the Landlord or Craigerfro would just die. They didn't exist because they would just die before the team fight because Snowy would run at them. And then they're just dead because Pele. just Pele things.
Yeah, just Pele things. And, you know, for how flashy we thought that 2 Icy was on her, and how often we called his name, he did like half of the damage that Snowy did on this Pele. So nowhere near as much recognition we gave this man as he really deserved. Certainly showing up in that one alongside Clucknuts, who also dropped 27k on the rebound there to make sure that this one goes to a game 3. I'm excited, Ionicus. I can't wait to see what this game 3 looks like.
I mean, if it's anything like this game 2, I'm expecting fireworks, and it will be an amazing game to watch. But we're going to go ahead and take a quick break as we get everything set up for game 3. And we'll see you guys all in just a little bit with the final game of the set.
And I've been chilling, watching the ocean with you. Baby, up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our clouds when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding. And I'll be running, possessed by a low, low voodoo. Fired up like a wolf on a full moon. And we're stuck in a la la land. The tides will turn without us. And I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Play me like a bass guitar. Simmer down and mess me up. Tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. Drive me around in your red Ford. Shivers down my spinal cord. Oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding,
Here we go again. Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. If you don't wanna change, I can help you out, I can help no wonder why, ain't no wonder right to. Here we go again. Call me up and you wanna be my friend. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide.
And I've been chillin', watching the ocean with you. Baby, up with a slow motion crew. And we up in our clouds when people change, but not us. And we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun. Could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Cause you got me holding. And I'll be running, possessed by a low, low voodoo. Fired up like a wolf on a full moon. And we're stuck in a la la land. The tides will turn without us. And I'll be killing time like I might be a cartoon. Take it in real life like haiku. I know we got the good vibes when pieces fall right into place. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Cause you got me holding. Play me like a bass guitar. Simmer down and mess me up. Tripping like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. Drive me around in your red Ford. Shivers down my spinal cord. Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes aren't funny.
Welcome back, Quack and Smite League, to game number 3 between the Journeymen and the Starhoppers. A banger of a set. Absolutely great performances from both teams going into this third game now. And I'm excited, honestly. Like, Starhoppers game 1 was a little bit lackluster. The plan that they had, they didn't quite execute. But game 2, just chef's kiss is all I gotta say.
Last night took an L, but tonight they certainly bounced back here in game number 2 and drove us to this game 3. And, you know, I was at the point where I thought that they didn't have enough direction to win one of these games if they didn't pick something that told them what to do. And I completely take that back, because that was not a cut and dry, this is how we're going to play kind of composition they drafted. That was a, these gods are good, we're gonna play them draft. And you can see Pele pretty quickly banned away here from Snowy on the jungle, because let's be real, my man looked very impressive on this Pele and truly transformative from the Bastet, which, again, I'm going to specify, wasn't even bad. It was just the Pele was significantly better. So I don't dislike the decision from the Journeyman to take him off of that one and make him play something else, because he looked like he was undisputed the best jungler between these two teams in that second game.
I mean, when you literally start most of your fights 4v5 because your Pele just found a carry like Krager for most of the time, but sometimes with those, and they're just gone, and they're down one of your big damage dealers, and you can't really do much with it. That's just a testament to how well Snowy was playing that game, and it really won out. Winions just obviously won the game for them after a really crazy fight. But it just went to show they had a great performance all game. They did really well. That last team fight being the big mar on the game itself. So very, very interesting. Other than that, we still got the tier respect ban. Capri is now finally banned. No one wants to play the Beetle Boy anymore. Baited too much by the Scarab Booty. But Cabrakan, top picked. Now that's not
Cab, pretty good. Like, I know we haven't seen this god in a couple of months because he's been banned, and I do think that there is something to be said for the effect that an extended ban has on people. Because Cabrakan is something that you literally have not played against in probably 3 months if you're playing at the top level, because everyone wants to ban it. And people eventually will think to themselves, like, wait, why are we banning this guy? Do we really need to ban this guy? And then you just leave it open in a game like this, and I think that that could be the game-changing mistake for the Starhoppers, because I think that the tier ban, it's fine. I don't think that the tier was really the reason that they won that game, if I'm being honest with you. It was certainly a menace in the laning phase, but I don't think it translated into the rest of the game as effectively as you really would have wanted. I'd rather see the Cabrakan ban there, and I am so happy to see this Athena picked up. I was talking to my friend Dashboard, shout out twitch.tv/dashboard, a couple of days ago, and he was telling me Athena is so undervalued right now, and it pairs so well with horrific emblems specifically because you can use one and then you get to use the other for free. You either taunt and you force the beads, then you horrific them, or you horrific them, they use beads, and then you taunt them. It is so difficult to keep your relics around this character, and now that they have changed her so that she also gets mitigations while channeling her ult, it is so hard to fight when two people on the map have 35% damage mitigation. That is so nuts.
Absolute crazy. And it used to be 30 too. They decided to buff it on top of giving it to her too.
Yeah, it went from 30 to 70 mitigations that you're getting from that ability. Like, who approves these changes?
Definitely insane. On the backside though, great. I think a Yu Huang Ishtar. That's gotta be like a S tier pick on the background. Obviously you got Daji to go up against, so you gotta be careful if Snowy just grabs the Cabrakan dead, and then you're like, oh, we don't have peel anymore, guys. So that's gonna be very difficult, I think, for the Starhoppers to fight into, just because Blades of Retribution was really strong. Yu Huang is the Charybdis of mid, let's be honest.
Yeah, basically. I mean, he self-banishes himself and makes it so that you can't kill him effectively. And actually, one of the best gods for killing this Yu Huang is Cabrakan, which they picked up. And that makes you wonder, would they have even, like, bothered with this character if Cabrakan was still available, or if they didn't have it to play around? I think that's an interesting angle to look at. And I also think that this top 6 overall is some of the best gods you can pick in Smite right now. You don't often see a fully top-end loaded draft like this. It's a lot of, like, flavor and flex picks and stuff like that that go in the top phase. But no, all of these gods are just, we are arguably the best gods in our respective roles. And that makes me very excited to see what the second half of this draft looks like.
I'm just looking at it and it's like, wow, that is a lot of just. It goes to show when people say there's too much stuff to ban, we're looking at it, man. We're looking at it. The Athena probably being the weakest one, but not even being weak. It's just a matter of the weakest among underrated. 6 really great picks.
Yeah, just underrated, man. Like, people will put this god at like a C plus B minus on tier list, and it's just really a shame because this is an A tier support if you are playing it correctly right now. Those mitigations are so incredibly impactful in a top level fight. Not to mention, again, hanging on to your relics around this character is so frustrating, and it makes it next to impossible to position as a tank in a way that doesn't just straight up get you killed. I think that Athena has been a sleeper for a while, and I'm excited to see teams finally start to recognize that this pick does have a lot of merit. And man, speaking of merit, this is just getting more and more insane for me. This Journeyman draft is one of the best that I've seen recently.
I'm sweating over here, man. I see the big boy Cthulhu, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I see the bat. Oh my goodness, Journeyman, great draft. That is going to be an extremely hard draft to beat. Kakolin, also going to be a very, very good pick, and probably not going to be able to bully a Cthulhu. I mean, you hit 5, you're just not killing him. He goes in Descent into Madness and just too tanky for a solo laner kill. Maybe Dodge, you can change my mind on that one. I would like to see what the Starhoppers are going to pick up for their mid laner here, or if they choose to move the Cupid mid. It's a little bit non-traditional to do that. It'd be interesting, but we do have stuff like the Cernanos is still open if they decide to go for the Double Hunter. Very, very good options. But another thing I'm really excited to look forward to is you keep talking about how Athena, great way to just make sure relics are gone. You know what's behind that, Athena? There is a Daji and a Cupid, and now an AMC. Just oh
wow.
my, ooh.
That's tough. I mean, Cthulhu has such a hard time diving ADCs, and Kinsai, one of the best items in the game, if not the best for dealing with this character. You could argue maybe Ethereal Staff has a space to claim in that conversation, but when you can already shred so many of these protections with that AMC Stinger, I think this was a steal of a 10th pick for the Starhoppers, because you do not want to dive into 2 ADCs to begin with, much less when one of those ADCs is an AMC that already has a crazy amount of power, all of the protection shred, all of the Kinsai damage as well from all of that attack speed that he's getting. This is going to be a difficult game for the Journeyman solo laner to really pilot this Cthulhu. You're really going to have to look for this Cabrakan to pair specifically with this Camazotz to find themselves into a position where they can get a lead early on. Because if you get to the team fight stage, as good as this Journeyman draft is, it will end up hinging a lot around Cthulhu creating space and Camazotz being able to successfully dive one of these ADCs and take them off the map. And if Starhoppers can kill this Cthulhu quickly and effectively, that could turn this fight on its head for the Journeyman and make it so that it doesn't even really feel like they have a whole lot of options left.
I'm also going to not lie. If, say, Cabrakan and Camazotz don't make this AMC as uncomfortable as possible, we talked about the third ability Yu Huang has to be able to get away. If you get stingered, that's a cripple, and unfortunately, unlike Charybdis, Yu Huang cannot use his 3 when he's crippled, which means that's just he's gonna be forced to use dueling dragons potentially, or just forces Cabrakan to have to use something defensively. Just as you said, a steal in 10th pick. Let's be real. Obviously, next Tuesday maybe gonna be less so of a steal, but it's not Tuesday yet, man. And we're gonna see how the Starhoppers and Clucknuts pilots this game.
Yeah, no, these are going to be a battle of the draft titans here, because again, both of these drafts you could pretty much blind pick this without any bans and be pretty satisfied with the way that both of these drafts went. And going back to this hunter or double hunter composition here for the Starhoppers, which didn't work so well in game number 1, obviously trading out both of those god picks specifically for something different will give it a bit of a different texture. But don't forget, this is a similar draft to what they ran in game 1, where it looked like they lacked direction. It looked like some of their fights were pretty difficult for them to really net any benefit from. So keep an eye on the way that they pilot these gods, because I don't want a replay of the last time they tried this double hunter.
Yeah, it definitely would be very much a shame. Especially since I see on the Cupid, the Fields of Love, there were a lot of like good ones, but they weren't like game changing most of the time. Definitely not like on her impales that he was super comfy on, and he's gonna have to be careful in Crackerfro now with the Ishtar, as you said, new kid on the block. That's the new era Cupid, so it's basically Cupid versus reskin Cupid
versus Cupid with a smaller head.
Cupid with a smaller head. The one thing I do want to say though is I also want to look at how these junglers are doing, because one big thing that we saw between both games of game 1 and game 2 was the jungler of whatever team that won was popping off. We had game 1, Gumbo obviously had multiple multi-kills early game with the Loki, and late game was able to keep that pressure and do the damage enough for his team. And now in game 2, we saw Snowy did a phenomenal job making sure people are dying. The solo lane might lose someone as Vito gets ganked by Gumbo and does fall. And maybe that could maybe Gumbo's was listening mentally into the future and was like, nah, I gotta do this.
And so scripted that you just happen to be talking about that as Gumbo walks over there and just nets the first blood for this game. And Camazot's a character that functions incredibly well with a lead. He does not have CC in his kit, or not anything meaningful anyway. All of his value comes from being ahead of you and dealing damage. And here's some damage on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Snowy was there for the side of Starhoppers, and Journeymen will lose the Cabrakan there, but that was an amazing taunt. Let's not lie. That was an amazing taunt. And not only, you were talking about horrific. No, Athena went one better. What if we sundered?
So good.
So just great fight there. I also want to know, right? Going back to Camazotz, right? Camazotz has been a solo god a lot of times, and Gumbo in the past has been a solo laner and a strong deep sea solo laner in the past. So this might be, like, as good as he is, might be a more comfortable pick than he's been on all set, potentially.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to point out either, because like you said, Camazot's flexible in both of those roles, but certainly has a much more comfortable home in the jungle right now. And speaking of being in the jungle, they're in the right-hand jungle, looking for this blue buff invade. And Cullen, not the top of your list of characters that need a blue buff, because he literally doesn't need a blue buff, but it is certainly difficult to function in this lane when you're already being put behind. And we've seen a lot so far this set of these teams putting emphasis on this solo lane and then transferring that lead into the mid lane. It's been one big solo laner making the rotations all set long. And getting your guy ahead in that conversation, making Corbin comfortable in this lane, getting him to the point that he can get what appears to be a hybrid damage build online and rotate out, that could be the deciding factor in this one. But first we'll have to see how this red buff invade goes.
Yeah, it does look like that they wanted to go for it. Clucknuts wanting to be a little bit more aggressive. Now Gumbo going in on the Clucknuts does hit his full combo, but unfortunately this is early in the game. You have a T2 item, not a full item, and now might see some extra damage and won't die as the rest of the Journeymen come on his backside. That was
phrasing
a lot of
tough
damage
there, but we certainly know what you meant.
Hey, they were coming. I was about to say something. I'll hold my tongue on that one.
So let's talk about this Cabrakan then, and the fact that he has beads, because Snowy picked Daji, which usually goes banned because it forces people to use beads and to get beads on characters they don't want to. And with how good the support relics are right now, getting beads on a support feels so bad. Because Shell is so good, Horrific is so good, Frenzy is so good at making sure you can win these team fights. Forcing a Cabrakan to get one of those relics is already a win just in the draft phase alone. So that already gives a very meaningful advantage to the Starhoppers in this one, and they are on the back foot here in the dual lane. They're going to have to fight their way out, but once they can get to the point that they can abuse the fact that they get this Sunder and the Cabrakan has to use beads, that's going to be a very meaningful advantage for them.
Yeah, it's just one of those things of, unfortunately, you got to make some sacrifices, and I will agree. Support relics, insane, and this Cabrakan is going to have to really play around having his utility more in that ultimate, and just having, you got like 2 stuns, one of them not DRable. I believe it's the first ability.
Yeah.
And you got to be very, very careful with how you manage that now, specifically because you don't have any other form of peel. You don't have the shell that would potentially, and that opens up, say, Athena to go for Sunder, because at this point it's like they're gonna go beats. Look at the Sunder, and now it's gonna be a matter of how strong, how fast they can kill Cabrakan or Cthulhu in the late game. Because I feel like Sunder on either Cthulhu or Cabrakan's gonna hurt.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to help you bring down specifically this Cthulhu, because if you get stung and then Sunder as this Cthulhu, you're going, oh my god, I'm dying, and you just start running away. And once you take that big beefy boy out of this conversation, that is already your linchpin for these fights taken out. I talked about that a little bit on the desk, where this composition will be driven early game by this Cabrakan and this Camazotz, but as soon as we get to team fight stage, you really need to hand the ball off to this Cthulhu. He is your late game carry for this team. And I don't mean that in terms of damage, I mean that in terms of he has the greatest impact on the map. So if you can take him out of the conversation, that is already a huge win for you. And now Starhoppers invading this Scorpion, but all of Journeymen seem to be ready to defend.
Yeah, I mean, the Journeymen were already over there. They got the Starhoppers Scorpion in before they even showed up. And now, unfortunately, I think Starhoppers were probably going to look to reverse it around. As Snowy does go in for the dive, but unfortunately, Yu Huang, he has that third ability. I fairly called it Descend, but Descent into Madness now goes up in the air. Vito does enter in rage form, does manage to get as far away as he possibly can, but Gumbo still on the chase. Great knock up over the wall by Corbin, but unfortunately it's just the Camazotz here. Now he's running over the Clucknuts here, and unfortunately that's slow. It's gonna be kind of insane. Now Corbin coming up, gonna have a little bit more damage, and no! Bat out of hell confirms the kill onto Vito. Just barely not able to get in time there. Oh, and on the other side?
Yeah, left-hand side still fighting over here. Bronchozoid gets pulled in. Beads apparently forced out earlier because he didn't use them there. Now Jolt used by Craig Afro, but he looks very comfortable in this fight. Bolt will go down from the Athena. The mitigation's enough. By the way, 35%.
Yeah, no, that's disgusting. Like, I'm gonna agree with Dashboard. I was saying after that buff was gonna be nuts. I just saw that buff. 30%, she dies there. 35% gets out. That's, oh my goodness, great Athena play. We'll say though, Brachiozoid, we just saw kind of the point where Cabrakan's going to be very, very rough. Oh no, Icy. Joel does miss, so Icy will get to live another day. But yeah, Cabrakan's gonna have to be careful, especially around this Athena and Daji, because we just saw he got out. He probably used his beads earlier on in the fights, like 100 seconds. So yeah, he definitely used it early in the fight, and then didn't have it for Daji to pull him in. So you have to be careful for the support.
Yeah, but you know, for all of the discussion we've had around how careful the Journeymen have to play, it's been this. It's been the Starhoppers aggressing onto them, and even despite that fact, they're 2,000 gold down in this one. It is Journeymen who are ahead in this, and it's a lot on the course of this Cthulhu. He has 1,000 gold of lead just alone in the solo lane, and 2 levels as well. And that's what happens when you have to build magic defense as a solo laner, because your lane opponent is a magical. Gumbo can just walk over here and do almost true damage to this Kukulkan, and it makes it very difficult to live through it, and makes it very difficult to live through getting taunted and sundered, but Gumbo will make it look a little bit easier than it really might have been. If they can continue to feed Corbin, feed this hot hand, this could get out of hand very quickly for the Journeyman.
Yeah, I mean, what's worse than just a Cthulhu running at you? A very fed Cthulhu that even... 2 Cthulhus would be nice. Unfortunately, Journeyman did ban the Morrigan beforehand when they saw the Daji, so it wasn't going to be an equation there. But Gumbo gets jumped on. Trickster Spirit able to do a lot of damage, and unfortunately, he's going to have to use the Bat Out of Hell. And now Trickster Spirit, very, very, very close Pala, but just not quite close enough. Gumbo will get out with his life, but not without his ultimate, but does trade for an even better ultimate, Palau, and now
they're going to war crime him.
Yeah, they're going to war crime. I don't know why that term's so funny, but yeah, they're going to gank this Cthulhu under his tower now. He is surviving for so long, and Vito dies to the tower. And no, we might even see a death by Snowy here, as Cthulhu goes under. Animated does manage to finally get the kill, but he might instead die to tower. Snowy! No! Thought his support could take a little bit more. Now Kama going to screen animated. No!
Oh my god, dude, my head hurts just watching that. The fact that they couldn't bring down this Cthulhu, who I don't know if he had any defense built yet. My man went Conduit Gem Pythags, and they sent 4 people to kill him and couldn't bring him down in time to save any of their lives. It's so shocking to me. And now Journeymen had their lead a little bit more, 2,000, call it 3, call it almost 4 here, after Craig Afro gets a very comfortable solo, still full HP, after killing 2 Icy and forcing the ult. This is not looking good for the Starhoppers.
We talked about a war crime, but that wasn't what we were talking about, man. That Cthulhu got away with murder while being murdered. And of course, obviously, Journeyman across the map getting wins everywhere. Obviously, Clucknut's probably the best in shape Starhopper there because he didn't die and he was farming. But that's just criminal to be able to have your Cthulhu just live that long and then still get 1 kill to the tower, 1 kill for himself, and 1 kill onto the camels. That's Clucknuts. Does get walled in, is forced to use his beads, but unfortunately the root will catch. Ooh. Won't have enough damage to follow up though. Great beads out of Clucknuts.
And while we're talking about building defense, I do think that it's worth pointing out, with this double hunter composition, you've got 4 physicals, and your damage dealer is an Athena that isn't going to be building any damage. So if you are the Journeyman and you can keep a decent lead, you can itemize protections very effectively against the Starhoppers. And you can see Brachiozoid doing exactly that, sovereignty and going into this Jade Emperor's crown, more likely than not here for this Cabrakan. He is next to immortal once he gets the 2nd item finished, until you start building penetration. And as you take a look at the side of the Starhoppers, they've not really got a whole lot of that yet. It's flat pen for the Staji and a little bit of flat pen being built for Clucknuts. Until you get Executioner online, until you get some levels in that AMC Stinger, you aren't really going to be able to bring down these tanks very effectively for the Journeymen. And that's really like your whole bit as the Starhoppers. You want to get 1 or 2 picks, probably a tank, and then do an objective. But look at this. Corbin's here and knows that he's got his Contagion online. No one is killing him right now.
Yeah, that's just an unfortunate thing. I mean, obviously, Vito can't really do much 2 levels down and has to build both defenses specifically, not having that physical defense for the Ishtar. And now, free Gold Fury for Journeyman. I mean, unfortunately, I don't think Starhoppers were ever contesting that. I mean, you've got Cthulhu, didn't even have to descend into madness. And now, oh no, they're looking at potentially ganking Animated or Snowy. But Gumbo does get hit by the Stinger, does manage to get out, but dies! The bleed damage from Daji. Descent into Madness does pop out. Oh my goodness, great root out of the Yu Huang there. Caught both Snowy and Clucknuts there. And unfortunately, Snowy is in between a rock and a hard place. And that hard place is a Cthulhu, as Animated might be the final 3rd kill for the side of Journeyman here. But maybe they commit war crimes. No, there's way too many. Vito on the backside does pick up Brachiozoid low from the tower. And great dodge from Animated. Just baiting out for Vito here. Great push. Oh my goodness. Icy comes in. Great Fields of Love. And now Cthulhu sitting here on his own. Might fall just because no ultimate, no nothing, but great Blitzeration comes out, gets the beats out of Icy. Vito does get the pushback on Kragerfro, but unfortunately, Joel going to do a little bit too much damage in the spread. No, the loss of damage on those side arrows is criminal, and that is the only reason Icy lives there.
Man, that fight had like 6 different phases. That was like a 10-course meal of a team fight. And at the end of the day, I mean, it's still Journeymen that come up on top of it. Like, for how scrappy, how back and forth that engagement was, they still got the Gold Fury. They still got enough kills to be pretty happy with the way that went. And now Snowy might have overextended as well here, jumping and blinking in to try to kill Craig Afro, but Shell gonna keep him alive. And now even more gold padding the coffers of the Journeymen, who, despite the fact that it looked kind of sketchy in that fight at times, are very comfortable with the position they ended up on the back end of it here. About 5,000 gold in the lead here at 15 minutes. This is reminiscent of that game number 1, where they kind of just rolled over the Starhoppers, and Starhoppers didn't have a great response to it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Daji was getting a little bit desperate. I mean, he got away with, like, I was seeing shades of old Shell when Daji wasn't a top meta pick, and in fact was bad because Shell would just block her big auto. I've got shades of that from how well that Shell worked out to save Craigerfro there. And unfortunately, you can't be making little steps like that. Some kills you just gotta let go. Obviously the relic was great, but the death was not. So gonna have to maybe clean it up, Starhoppers. I wouldn't lose your mental now. It is 5k down, but it's 5k at 15 minutes. We saw Journeymen last game having great defenses, being even further behind against Fire Giant. So hopefully Starhoppers can stay in this, especially with their big team fight ultimates. We just saw it in that last fight. Cupid came in and that had amazing Fields of Love, but Vito, guy, we gotta talk here. You can't be proxying after you've been killed like 2-3 times behind their towers. Descent into Madness, Bad Out of Hell both come out. Unfortunately, Vito will be leaving. Does get a Severe Mortal Pain, but it's not going to be enough. Cthulhu picking up another kill into the solo lane. And going to lose both T1s in solo, it looks like.
Yeah, and that's going to be even more gold to just continue to pile on for this Journeyman lead. And don't forget, Starhoppers were down pretty significantly in game number 2 and managed to swing it back pretty much miraculously, if I'm being completely candid here. But I don't think that we're going to see as many theatrics here in game number 1. Journeymen were overextending. They were making a lot of mistakes, and we just haven't seen a whole lot of that from them. There we go. Here in game number 3, it has been very clean from them as they turn their attention to this Pyromancer. Cabrakanal goes down, oddly enough, but despite any contest from the Starhoppers, they will net that objective, and Fire Giant could be on the cards very soon here.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to say, because I'm also going to say this. Their lifeline last game, the Starhoppers, was Icy over here, having the confidence in the Craigerfro's Ishtar with the honor, and unfortunately, I don't think Cupid's doing the same thing. But I do agree, Fire Giant, very much a real possibility. It's not a Merlin, but Yu Huang also has that prot shred on his ability. Beads does come out of Craigerfro there as Fields of Love come out. Great shell out of Craigerfro, has Blades of Retribution in the opposite direction, and unfortunately no longer has CC immunity and will now die and fall. Unfortunately, maybe I don't know what he's trying to immune. Be 100% real with that Blaze of Retribution.
Damage, I guess. And pretty much, if you're Snowy, you're saying, okay, I can gank this Ishtar, and then you draw up that exact play to say that you can gank the Ishtar. Now Snowy under contest, under tower, gets the Athena ult, but that's going to wear off eventually. Gumbo is in the air, Taunt not on the mark to bring him back into the towers, so they keep Snowy alive, but I don't know how many of them are really going to be escaping the wrath of the Starhoppers here.
Yeah, we do see Athena does have Sunder. Taunt will be coming up. Kraken can only move so fast, and Clucknuts surely behind, but unfortunately he will beats. That's gonna be dicey. That's gonna be dicey next team fight. Oh, Gumbo fighting Vito, and unfortunately it looks like for Journeyman that Starhoppers are gonna go for this Gold Fury. Not enough players on the board able to contest them. Cthulhu in mid trying to fight off Snowy, who came back full health, but unfortunately might come around looking for something. But Starhoppers are going to let him walk away. Vito, obviously, not going to be doing, or not. Athena coming in and taunting, but the rest of the damage dealers not quite ready for that engagement. But now, Corbin will get out. Oh, so much damage from the Yu Huang just from his second ability. That Dow Cultivation hurt. I'm not going to lie. I saw 80% health Snowy, and I saw 30% health.
Yeah, and that's really what this Yu Huang brings. We haven't seen a whole lot of this god recently, but don't forget this guy pumps out the numbers. Like, I'm talking both of his main damaging abilities doing in and around 1,000 damage each, not counting his ult late game. So they do eventually get to near nuclear levels, and he's really only fallen out of favor on account of the fact that Cabrakan has been very strong at countering him, but now that gets banned away, and now that you really don't need as much pressure in mid, I say that with tongue-in-cheek, knowing that a lot of hunters are played in mid specifically for their pressure. You can kind of mortgage some of that as long as you have something to hand the ball off to later on. And that's really what this Yu Huang does. Feels bad, man, for Corbin. But that's what this Yu Huang does, is you give him the ball at 20 minutes and say, hey, it's your turn to do a bunch of damage. He will absolutely say, okay, this ability hits for 1,000, this ability hits for 900. Who am I throwing them at?
I mean, in most cases, it'd be Snowy, I would assume. But yeah, I mean, and obviously that's without mitigations. But we also can't forget that the first ability, Phoenix Flame, shreds protections. If I remember correctly, it is just magical. But I mean, you got Cthulhu and Cabrakan, two very, very aggressive picks. Obviously, Cthulhu's gonna love it, and Cabrakan's just gonna do damage now. But we do see a fight up into the jungle of Starhoppers. Gumbo is forced to beads out and jump away from the Fields of Love. But Journeymen are gonna group up now, just recognizing, that's all of the Starhoppers. Maybe we don't go in two at a time.
It's a little weird that he chose to use beads instead of the ult there, right? I mean, my man's got 30% cooldown and decides that he needs to use a relic to get his way on out of that one. Maybe he got taunted or something off screen that we didn't see, but that makes it so that the Journeymen can't really do anything right now. They looked ready and grouped up to try to pull that Fire Giant, and maybe they were only up that far to look for a pick to make that a little bit easier, but hang on, cancel that. I'm talking about they can't do it. They are absolutely pulling this one.
I mean, they just saw Starhoppers just left. Like the Journeymen have enough wards to know that the Starhoppers aren't there anymore. Great Dueling Dragons to just put animated, who came down on top of Vito. It put him in a very, very bad situation. Got great chains, but unfortunately not enough. That third ability from Yu Huang negates it entirely. Oof. Oh no, that's a little bit unfortunate. But now, side of Journeymen are having a backup. They did get the Fire Giant. But Craigerfro throwing some great damage back. Will even pick up the kill before he falls. And now Josh the Landlord picks up Clucknuts. And now this is on the side of the Journeymen chasing the side of Starhoppers for just chasing a little bit too far and being like, yeah, we can get these guys. They're low.
Wow.
Cupid just gone. Where'd the baby go? Who knows?
Holy Lord, man. You don't see a lot of people planning on that weird fear from Cthulhu one, but if you can get that off effectively, that is very good setup there. And I don't think 2icy really expected to just disintegrate under the pressure there. Neither here will Vito, but he's going to actually make his way out of there. Maybe not Corbin as he gets taunted and sundered, but just tanky enough with all this physical defense that he's built that he should see his way on out of there. 8,000 gold and 4 members with Fire Giant now for the Journeymen. And Starhoppers are not willing to just give up everything. They are certainly clinging to every last little bit of farm, all of their structures that they can, but they have certainly got their work cut out for them here as Journeymen have gotten to the late game with the Fire Giant, with the late game team. This is absolutely right where they want to be, and I don't think that you could draw up a better game state for them here, except for, I don't know, maybe just giving them a whole bunch more golden levels.
I mean, a whole bunch of more golden levels is all nice and dandy. I mean,
yeah, never hurt anybody, right?
Never hurts anyone. But the biggest thing, the biggest person who could probably use those is this Athena. Level 13, 23 and a half minutes into the game.
Yeah,
I know support's level slow, but like, I feel like that's slow. Yeah, not that slow. It's going to be very, very rough, I think, for this Athena to be able to do her job, because specifically, you're trying to taunt Cabrakan into dying, right? But what if you taunt yourself into dying because you're so low level that your prots and everything that you have built don't matter because everyone just beats into your your defense more than you can. Oh, no. Great tectonic shift out of the Cabrakan, does catch Athena all on her own, does have Cupid ult, Fields of Love to peel herself out, but unfortunately that's a big team fight ultimate that is no longer on the table.
Very big.
I mean, what, you got Dodge E ultimate now, you got to count on that, and unfortunately you got beads on Ishtar, beads coming up in 15 seconds for Cabrakan, 25 for Yu Huang. Looking a little dicey.
And Starhoppers do have the items they need, though. Heartseeker and Titan's Bane finished out for Clucknuts and Snowy, and 2icy has Exy and Kin, so everything they need to do the damage is here. Let's see if they can put the damage out.
Yeah, as the fight starts out, Vito blinks in onto the backline. Craigerfro almost dead. Barely survives for a moment longer due to the Cthulhu 3 there, but not for much longer as Vito pushes back Brockazoid into the rest of the team. But unfortunately, now you have the Camazots, Bat Out of Hell, coming in, and Josh the Landlord putting on an absolute clinic on this Yu Huang, doing so much damage and outputting so much. And unfortunately, now it's just the two frontliners, the one frontliner in the support, and they might just end this game here.
Now that game could very well just be over. It's only Athena left to contest here against 4 members strong for the Journeymen. A couple of low health bars here, but it'll take a lot of heroics to save this one.
Yeah, Athena can only do so much as the Titan. It is falling slowly, a little bit tankier with the extra towers on the map. Great taunt. Unfortunately, Athena doing as much as she can. The Sundering Blast will do a lot, but it's, Athena falling low. And unfortunately, that Yu Huang that's been doing a lot of damage still does a lot of damage. And not only him, but the Kamazats. And they will take game 3 and the set. Journeyman 2-1 against the Starhoppers.
Wow, they had all of their boxes checked for the Starhoppers. I was just talking about you need all of the percent pen you can get when you're up against a team that's only going to build FizzD because you have 4 physicals. And they got the Heartseeker, they got the Titans, they got the Kins, they got the Exi, they got the Sunder, they got the upgraded Ankh. All of the tools were there, but they were just so far behind. The point of the game that they were at was such that they needed to play next to perfect in order to win that to defend on that siege and prevent that game from being won there. And they did a good job of getting to Craig Afro, who some questionable positioning in a couple of those fights that led to some deaths, but certainly did put out just enough damage and just enough structure damage specifically to allow them to really make sure that they got that siege finished off. Credit where credit is due to the Starhoppers. They never seemed completely out of that when they were still looking for aggressive options. They were still willing to fight. They had a couple of good looks in that one, but the Journeymen really did just cross all the T's and dot all the I's. And as soon as they got their lead online, once they got that Fire Giant, there just wasn't any stopping them.
I mean, I'm going to be 100% honest. Like, that could... The Journeymen had a really, really good idea of what they wanted to do, and they really came through with it. Again, give credit to Starhoppers. They did play with a sub, not even a sub from the roster like the other side did. Brockazoid is being on the Journeyman roster, Vito not on the Starhoppers. So maybe a little bit lack of synergy there might have been it. But I will give credit back to Journeyman as well for playing it incredibly well. I'm just going to say it. That Yu Huang popped off last game. Yu Huang, the Kamazats. Obviously, Ishtar did her damage and did what she did, but I think those two have to be stars of the show. Just because I was seeing Josh the Landlord, Kamazats in like every fight, and it was a beauty to behold watching how much damage that they did. Let's be honest.
Yeah, don't forget about my man Corbin LD on the Cthulhu. Top damage in that one. Granted, some of that, is just solo laner things where you just smack each other for a while, but certainly did make his presence known in that one and made sure that his impact was felt also. But it was certainly a team effort from the Journeymen to take that one, and I don't think that you could really expect anything less from this roster if they were going to be claiming this set over the Starhoppers, who certainly did show up and certainly were willing to play that whole time. They were never down and out, but unfortunately they do end up losing the set 1-2, but I don't think they needed to be too disappointed in that performance. Maybe next week, all 5 members strong, I'm sure that they will be a very formidable opponent.
Yeah, it should be great. I mean, let's be honest, Corbin probably earned that Corbin earned that damage because it's only fake damage if you don't get kills. And Vito died, 3-4 times in laning phase? But on that note, both teams did well. Journeyman winning 2-1 over the Starhoppers. And now looking forward to a good next week for both teams. Both teams very much strong, even with subs, man. Like, that was a great set to behold. That's probably one of the better ones I've casted it recently. So thank you for everyone. Thank you for everyone who stopped by and has watched the stream. It's been wonderful being able to cast a set and enjoy it with all of you guys here. But we also hope you have a wonderful day going forward and to the rest of the night. Thank you all for showing up. This is me, Sorionicus, and Kaizo on Chair 2 with Raptor on production. Shout out to Raptor.
Big shouts.
Have a good night, y'all.
Watching the ocean with you, baby, up with a slow motion crew, and we up in our cloudlands when people change, but not us, and we just chillin', kicking it, kissed by the sun, could be soaked to the skin in the mall soon. I know she got the good vibes when seasons change, but we're the same. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. like I'm Jimmy at Woodstock. And I drive me around in your red Ford, shivers down my spinal cord. Oh, 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 oh. 'Cause you got me holding, holding. Even if I lost all my money, the zero runs deep, honey. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding, holding. Even if my jokes are funny, my tongue tied up on it. And I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding,
Here we go again. Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end.